Good morning, everybody. I don't know where my other paper is. We are at the day 2 on August, I don't know, what is today? 13th of our August meeting. And so we will come to order and get started. We are starting with Dr. Frank Harwood. Oh my gosh, I do that internally. I usually don't say it out loud. It's usually in my brain. Dr. Harwood, we're going to talk about some federal fund situations. Thank you, sir.
All right, and as Scott Gordon said yesterday, I've been called a lot worse, so it's all fine. This would be the 4th month that I've got to come up and talk about federal funding issues, and hopefully this will be the last. So the news is relatively good. I'm going to break it into, there's 2 separate things we've talked about. One was the ESSER funds, so we've been talking about since April, and then the other ones were the title funds, which we started talking about in July. So just as a reminder, on May 28th, we were told that the ESSER funds that had been approved to be spent in 2024, we no longer had access to. And so for 3 months, we didn't have access to them, but on June 27th, we got told that we had access again. So you remember some of those things that happened is that we got told on March 28th, we had our vendors set up to bill us quarterly. The end of the quarter is March 30th. So then we were $2.6 million in the hole, $1.1 million that we'd actually spent, and then another 1.6, actually it's 2.7, another $1.6 million that we were told we couldn't pay vendors for work that they had done on the contracts that had been executed. So since that time, on June 30th, we submitted a reimbursement for the $1.1 million. The way the federal funds work is you have to spend them first, and then you can ask for reimbursement. The end of June, the beginning of July is kind of a tight time for our fiscal services because it's the end of the fiscal year. So we couldn't, the systems weren't open the first week in July. So by July 10th, we paid the other $1.6 million to the vendors that were outstanding bills, and we submitted that for reimbursement on July 11th. We have not received those funds yet. Last week, we got a request for some additional information on one of them. We gave that information, and we've said we'll get back with if we have more questions. So that's where those are at. We do know that other states are receiving funds. What we think has happened is that they are reviewing everything as a group once a week. And so they can only get through so many at a time, and they're taking them in the order that they were received. We don't know that since we had a question, do we go back to the bottom of the pile, or is there another place to go through there? But that's what's going on with those. So good news is that we have the access to the funds. We just haven't received the funds, except now our vendors are up to date with payments. We've talked to our vendors about when they start working again, we're going to ask them, although the contracts still say that they submit invoices quarterly, we've asked them to start doing it monthly for 2 reasons. One is that we don't get in the same pickle, at least as big a pickle as we had last time. The other thing is that by taking out those 3 months, we have some concern whether some of the vendors can actually complete the tasks that were there. So by doing it monthly, we can keep a better track on, because especially some of the ones that were teacher training, we lost the summer months when those trainings could have occurred. So now we have them by next week, they're going to submit to us what are the things that they think they may not be able to get done. Because again, all of this money has to be, all of the expenses have to be incurred by the end of January of 26. And then we have to, last weekend is March. So it's taken a big chunk out of the time that we were going to do some of the work, but that's kind of where we're at. So, Madam Chair, I'll take questions on the ESSER funds before I move on to the other federal funds, if that's okay with you. Okay, so then, yeah.
So all the ESSER funds that we're getting back are already accounted for. They're just not going to be spent anyway.
Right. So yeah, the the expenditures can only be made on the contracts that were in place on September 30th of 2024 that were approved by the U.S. Department of Education. So we cannot do new contracts. The process does allow us to move money around within the contracts. So if we have one contract that says, we were going to do this training in the summer and now we can't, actually a better example is some of the money was being used to offset the costs of daycare licensure. In July, some of those fees were eliminated. So we don't need the money to do that anymore. So we can redirect that to another contract, and what we're doing is with more letters seats. So that's what we're now. So we're asking the vendors to tell us what can you not get done, so that we can start making some of those choices about, are there places where we can shift the money, but it has to stay within one of those existing contracts.
So the end result is most of it's letters training then? So
yeah.
we should.
Yeah. And the advantage
reading, so everybody should be learning how to read.
Yeah, the advantage with letters training is you actually purchase the seat in the training at the front end, whereas some of the other trainings we're doing, we actually paid a reimbursement, which means that we can purchase letters seats in January for training coming up. So that contract is the most flexible and actually the most needed. So that's where most of anything else will go. It does increase the chance that when we get to the end, there's just money that we could not spend that will go back, that without the 3-month pause, we would have minimized that.
So the end result should be better for our kids.
Yes. Yeah. So, all right.
Go ahead. I think we're good.
All right. So then the other thing we talked about in July is on June 30th, we were informed that the U.S. Department of Education was pausing several title programs that should have been available to districts on July 1st. So it was a total of about $42.9 million to districts, and it included Title 1C, Title 2A, Title 4A, and Title 4B. Title 4B is 21st Century Schools, which would be before and after school programs. We found out just on the 22nd that the 21st Century Schools money would be released. And then we found out on the 27th that all of the other money would be released. The problem being that July 1, which is the first day of the school's fiscal year, is a bad time to find out that you may not have these dollars, especially because you are planning for kids showing up. So the easiest one is the before and after school programs. It's like, how are we going to open on the first day of school? And so they got informed first that the funds were coming, and now everybody knows that they are. There would not be a way that we would have actually received any of those funds yet, because again, now the districts have to spend the money, and then they request reimbursement. They do that once a month. It's the 18th of the month, and then we'll move forward. The difference, we don't think there's going to be a problem with that, because the U.S. Department of Education did not change the process. And that process is pretty simple. The districts tell us what they spent the money on. We take care of that, and then those funds usually turn around within a day. But again, it's the same process. The districts spend the money. The state reimburses the districts, and then the federal government reimburses the state. But that's a much more automated process.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I hate to go back to this, but so are we talking to school districts that when this craziness happens again, how are you going to be able to handle, if you're not getting the federal money, are you going to be able to handle that? Are you looking at how much money you're really getting? And are you, in your mind, boards getting in their head, how are we going to handle if we don't get the federal money? So,
I think that's one of the things that probably the federal government has done is degraded the trust in the funds. These funds were actually allocated more than a year ago. They were approved again in March by the current administration, and then in June they paused it. And so when we were talking to districts, we said, well, you should budget like you're going to get them and spend like you're not. And so there were districts that had to make choices about positions, because some of those, I mean, many of the title funds are funding that's used to work directly with students, especially students learning a second language or migrant students. And so we know that there were districts that moved people into other open positions that were not funded with those funds. Now, the question is, how do we provide those services moving forward? So districts are thinking about that. I guess the positive thing is that the administration had in their budget proposal zeroed out many of those funds and block granted them. The Senate Appropriations Committee actually has moved forward the 26-27 budget with actually either flat or increasing funding and the same formulas. So it's not uncommon for the administration to make a budget recommendation that doesn't go very far in Congress. I don't know how that will work now, but the first part, which was the Senate appropriations, has kept the money. If I'm a superintendent or a school district, I'm thinking about, all right, so that sounds good, but what happens if? And so those are all the things that we're going to be thinking about. The good news is that now, as opposed to only having a month to figure it out, they should have a year, but they'll have to keep that in mind.
Yeah, because if we have the free lunch program and they're buying all the produce and everything and all the meat and everything locally, so they better, I mean,
yeah,
they got to be thinking, hopefully, so you've got businesses in your local community that are getting whatever they're getting for the lunches, the morning meals and the lunch and free lunch and after school and all those different things.
So I will say that we have not seen the same starting and stopping of funds from USDA, where the school meals program is, versus the Department of Education. So far USDA now, but we have to look and see what happens with the Farm Bill and some other things. So we're going to have to keep an eye on those things, certainly.
I think we're solid.
All right.
Thank you very much for the update.
So hopefully nothing happens, so I have to come back and talk about this next month. So
hope so too. Okay, thank you. Up next, we will have with us, we're going to get some great presentations board about the Still of Literacy trainings that we have on the list. We're going to start with Dr. Cynthia Lane of the Blueprint for Literacy and the Foundations course. And I know she has Dr. Carlson, make sure I get the name right, thank you, with her. So welcome.
Thank you very much. And thank you for the opportunity to be following Frank so I can provide some positive, uplifting news. No, really, you all are champions for our children and our families and our educators across Kansas. So thank you for all that you're doing to try to ensure that every classroom has highly qualified educators and every child has the opportunity to read. We greatly value that. And as representing the Kansas Board of Regents, I stand before you today in solid partnership with what you're striving to do. The Blueprint for Literacy is about one thing, the main thing: teach every child to read. And we do that by empowering our educators. So today I'm just really grateful Chair Hopkins asked us to come and share what we're learning so far about the foundations in the science of reading, understanding and applying the principles of structured literacy, courses 1 and 2 that you approve for your Seal of Literacy. We call the course Foundations. We've learned a lot. We want to share that with you. So today it's about, I'll remind you a little bit about the course and what makes Foundations different from other offerings that are there. We want to have opportunity from Dr. Carlson, who is a professor at Washburn and the lead, frankly, of our Foundations project, to share how instruction from her lens is different for this course and trying to meet the needs of each educator. And then finally, you'll have a video that we can share with you, the voices of our educators from Topeka 501 who were in our pilot course. Those educators are greeting their children from day one of school today. They would have loved to be with you, but they knew you would understand that they're going to be with their children this morning. But a message from them that they asked me to carry forward is come to their classrooms, visit them, come talk about how they're now implementing the science of reading and structured literacy for every child in their class. So we're really grateful for the time. So teach every child to read. That's what this is about. We are very appreciative of having the course approved for the Seal of Literacy, and that's important, but that's not the why. The why is to provide that high impact professional learning for educators in the field so that they can teach every child in their classroom, in their school, to read. 4 key components of foundations, and this is really kind of what separates foundations from perhaps other offerings. It is knowledge-based, so as with letters, it's focused on the science and the knowledge and having our educators have deep understanding about how children learn to read and the elements of doing that. It also requires what we call a community of practice. You're going to hear Dr. Carlson talk about all teach, all learn. So the courses are organized so that educators are working together and learning from each other and having rigorous conversations about how to implement the science in their classrooms. So that community of practice. Third thing, application. Foundations has application built in. So I like to think about it as learn, do, learn, do, learn, do. So you learn the knowledge, then you have application assignments to do with the children in your classroom, and then you also have the next component, coaching. Every educator that goes through Foundations has a coach. Now, that looks different from each of our universities and our independent college partners, but the essence is everyone has a coach so that each week they can talk with their coach about how to effectively implement. So Foundations is about the knowledge, it's about learning from each other, it's about application, and it's about that coaching piece. Who's it for? It is a Tier 1 instruction curriculum. Very much like Foundations, it is foundational knowledge that all educators in general ed classrooms need, but it's not just limited to that because special educators, ESOL teachers, instructional coaches, reading specialists can all benefit, but the focus is on how to teach structured literacy in a general ed classroom with support. So Tier 1 and Tier 2 is what you should be thinking about. It is very rigorous and supportive. And you're going to hear from our educators that this was a difficult task to get through, but they're successful because of that support that's built in. It's data informed in the application, lots of conversations with educators about using screening and diagnostic assessments and how to take that data into their instruction. And it emphasizes what students need. We believe in curriculum, and we know you all are working on solid, high-impact curriculum, but this is about taking that curriculum and making sure it meets the child's needs, not just fidelity to the curriculum. So you can ask Dr. Carlson about that if you desire. So the requirements. You may recall that there's a pre-assessment that gives the faculty instructors a baseline about how their educator students, what they know and where their gaps might be, organized in 12 modules that are topic driven. And in those modules, there are assessments that they have to pass all along the way at 85%, and that includes application assessments. So lots of knowledge, lots of opportunities to demonstrate that I'm learning the knowledge. Then the coaching piece, and then there's also a summative assessment. So all of that adds up to successful passing. And as I love to call them, our first 35, we're thrilled to see that Seal of Literacy coming before them as they finish the pilot. So I'm going to ask Carolyn to talk about the instructor approach, but let me skip to this and then I'll invite you forward, Dr. Carlson. We launched the pilot in March. As a reminder, we stood before you and received your approval for the Seal of Literacy in April. We have 7 public universities, all the public universities in the state, and 4 independent colleges that are our partners. I like to call this team the Literacy 7 Plus. And so the faculty have now formed a community of practice of faculty talking about how to improve their instruction. So that's exciting. We had 35 that completed, as I mentioned, this past July. And moving forward, we have funding available for 1,500 to 2,000 scholarships and stipends for Kansas licensed educators. Future conversation, I'd love to talk with you about how we ensure Kansas invests in literacy as an economic priority. So I hope to come back before you to have those discussions. So now let me hand it over to Dr. Carlson to have her talk about how this course is different, perhaps, from the faculty instructor's viewpoint and what she's learning. Dr. Carlson.
Thank you, Dr. Lane, and thank you, Chair Hopkins and the rest of the board. I want to start by saying that it has been my absolute privilege to work with these 35 educators. They are smart, they are dedicated, they are eager to learn and do what's best for their students, and it has been a pleasure of mine to do this. As Dr. Lane mentioned, this learning opportunity is a bit different than maybe other professional development opportunities, other pathways to the Seal of Literacy, other courses that these educators may have taken. Because of the pilot was organized within the USD 501 school district, all of the educators were local, and so I had the great fortune of being able to meet with them in person. We met regularly. Over the 16 weeks, we met, I think, 14 times. And that was actually the choice of the educators. I asked them, how best can we do this? Can we do this? Do you want to meet via Zoom? Do we meet what day of the week? How do you want to do it? And they very much wanted to meet on campus with me on a regular basis. So because of that, we were able to build quite that community of practice that Dr. Lane referred to, where we all were learning from each other. We were all sharing our experiences. All of the teachers were from the 501 district, but from different buildings, different grade levels, different experiences. So we were really able to lean on each other for experiences and information. With each of those sessions where we met, we really dug deeper into areas where it was clear that we needed to fill in some gaps, maybe clarify some areas of misconception or things that maybe they weren't exactly sure what we were really referring to. So they had the content, they all worked through the content, but the sessions where we met in person were really personalized. And I think that's a difference in this experience maybe than some of the other experiences they may have had. One of the aspects that Dr. Lane mentioned was the coaching. When I first mentioned to the educators that they would each have a coach, they were going to have this coaching experience, they were very, very hesitant, very unsure of what that was going to look like. And then I explained to them, this is not maybe the coaching that maybe you're used to. The coaching program, the coaching approach that we take in the Foundations course is non-evaluative. That's the first big key. So their coach was not there to evaluate their teaching or evaluate their students or evaluate their knowledge. The coach was not evaluating anything. They were a support to help the educator apply the information that they were learning in the course in their classroom, with their students, with their resources, with their time, with all of the things in their situation. The coaches were there to support the teachers with a goal that the teachers set, not something that the coach had set. The coach wasn't saying, I noticed that maybe this is something you need to work on. It was all teacher driven. And they were there simply to support on a regular basis. Within 2 weeks of starting the coaching, the educators were coming back and saying, I am so grateful that I have this person who is my own personal coach that I can every week I can go to and I can say, okay, here's what I'm running into. How do I do this? What do I do? So the educators had me, they had their coach, and they had each other. And that has built this strong community where we are really seeing the impact. We're seeing the growth. We're seeing their confidence. We're seeing their empowerment. And we are seeing real change. Even small changes that they were able to implement from week one of the course, they are able to do these things in their classrooms. It is making a difference. And I think we'll go ahead and maybe hear from the educators. We have them via video, as you know, it's first day of school. So we can, maybe, do I need to go to it? Okay. Okay, here we go.
When you equip somebody with the skills in order to be literate, you are really giving them a stepping stone to make a difference in their lives and in the lives of the people around them. My name is Bethany Elmquist. I am a 4th grade teacher at Ross Elementary, and I am about to start my 10th year in education and teaching. And this course has been something that I've been longing for, I think, for a long time. I've always wanted to be a better reading teacher because my kids deserve that. But I never knew quite what I needed in order to serve them best. Something that stood out to me about the Foundations course versus some of the PDs that I've taken in the past is that it was very consistent, and it was different levels of learning. It was, here's the knowledge that you need in order to teach reading, and then here's how to apply it. One thing that I've really loved is the coaching program. It's been really awesome to work with a coach that's not involved at all within my district to get a different perspective, but also to encourage me, to build me up. It always felt very positive. No matter what was happening in my day or in her day, we were able to come together and have a really positive interaction around what I was learning in this Foundations course and how I could implement all of this within my classroom.
My name is Amy Martin, and I teach 5th grade at Meadows Elementary in USD 501, and this will be my 17th year.
And I'm Haley McGee, and I teach kindergarten at Meadows Elementary School, and this will be my 20th year.
One thing that made the Foundations course different from other PDs I have taken is how engaging it was. We would meet at Washburn, and we would get to interact with not only people from our school, but across the district.
It went more in depth with the science of reading and the structure of how to teach reading, not just based off of a specific curriculum, but more about the process of teaching reading. And even though I've been teaching for nearly 2 decades, I have not had a lot of specific training with the science of reading. So I would highly recommend the Foundations courses to any and every educator. The experience has changed the way I think about teaching and the way I'm going to implement what I do. I would love to further my education with Washburn and continue working on learning more about teaching reading, the science of reading, foundations of literacy. I would highly recommend it. It is a lot of work. It is a big commitment, but it was worth every moment that I spent working on it.
My name is Tracy Wilson, and I've taught with USD 501 for 31 years, and I've been a math interventionist and recently a reading interventionist for the past 19 years.
My name's Katie Roque, and I've been a 1st grade teacher. This will be my 15th year for Topeka Public Schools. The thing that made the most impact for me was the amount of hands-on things that we did. Not just learning in a classroom or watching videos or reading through slides, but actually going and applying these things in my classroom.
Well, reading is everything. So if students cannot read, then writing's going to be hard, math's going to be hard, everything's going to be hard. So I feel that putting money into this program, opening up other opportunities for the science of reading will just benefit everyone in all the schools, and then it just builds onto our community, and it just keeps building.
The other thing that was so powerful to me was Dr. Carlson's passion for the topic and the knowledge for the topic and her love for it, and her knowledge about it really, I felt like, made me very passionate about it and very much love and want to tell everyone about the science of reading.
As our gap widens, there's only one way to change that, and that's through our instruction. Our instruction has to change in the classroom. The only way to change that instruction is by classes like this that we took through Washburn University under Dr. Carlson.
One thing that I learned from this group of educators is how powerful collaboration and community can be. We can make a difference if we all work together. If we're open to learning, we're open to hearing, we're open to changing, and I teach from a perspective of all teach, all learn. We all have something we can teach one another. We all have something we can learn from one another. And I think when we all come from that place, that's where change really happens.
Yes, sir.
Can you go back and say, this is before that, when you were speaking earlier, but I think you said that the teachers really enjoyed when they were face-to-face with each other instead of Zooming it or instead of using the screen. I can't
Yes.
remember the word you said, but I'm kind of on that, so.
You know, because the pilot was done with our local district, I had that opportunity where they were all local. And so we could gather together and meet. And it was powerful. I mean, I think we all know that learning as a social activity, as a group, is powerful. It is meaningful. And it was the conversations that were happening during instruction, but it was also the relationships that we were building before class, after class, working in small groups, doing things. I tried to build that sense of community and those relationships because I wanted the class to be a place where they could freely say, I don't know how to do this part. Can you explain this in this way? Or this is how I was taught, but maybe this isn't what we now know what to do. And so that gave us that opportunity where we were able to build that. Can it be done via Zoom or virtually or using other platforms? Perhaps. And I think if the situation is that you have people across the state, that may be what occurs. But again, with the pilot, I did have the ability to do that with this group, and frankly, I'm so proud of these teachers. They really are something we should all be proud of, and we're going to continue this. I mean, we just went and visited them a week ago, and we're going to continue to keep that community going.
If I may add, one of the things that we're doing is that the instructors are required to submit a very detailed report to my office at the conclusion of course 1 and course 2, so we can look at the data to see which instructional format had the most impact, what content needs to be revised. And since the pilot, Dr. Carlson has already led a revision, a deep dive into the course. So it's continuous improvement, and we're trying to understand how impactful can we be if we don't have the opportunity to all be in the same room. So thank you for that question.
Thank you. And Debbie, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And actually, as you know, we've been getting a lot of feedback from our School for the Deaf. Of course, I don't want to leave out the School for the Blind because, they both have already enough struggles in life, right? So the science of reading, this really excites me, especially when I'm hearing about your coaches and these scholarships and stipends and stuff. And I was wondering if you could possibly look into kind of making a foray into that world and seeing maybe what their science of reading needs are. Because I've talked to so many people, I learned that the difference between a D and a T is one is vocal and one is not. These are the science of reading things that I'm sure the teachers at the School for the Deaf are well aware of, but I would expect that they could use that same support and that same science of reading, just encouragement and coaching and money and all that good stuff. If you could let us know how it goes too.
We will definitely reach out and see how we might be helpful. Now, the funding piece, I'm going to come back and talk to you because right now our funding is limited to this year, but working together and working with our legislative partners, I'm sure we can find a way forward past this year. But we'll follow up. Thank you for that.
Beryl.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Dr. Lane. Thank you, Dr. Carlson. I think that what we've seen today has just been a wonderful representation of the type of professionals we have working with our children in Topeka Public Schools. So I have to give them a shout out. As I was looking, recognize many of the individuals. I think, well, perhaps some that I saw in the photo I hired. So I'm so glad that you selected Topeka Public Schools. And I know there were other choices in our county, but I think they do represent well. Second thing I want to thank you for, though, is for providing the scholarships, as Debbie mentioned. Sometime taking advanced level courses can be something that a teacher may want to do, but not have the financial means to be able to do. So thank you for that. And then finally, for ensuring that every single child has the privilege and the right to learn how to read. Reading can be the gatekeeper to a successful future. So I'm behind what you're doing 100%, and I'm very grateful to both of you for bringing this to our Kansas kids.
Thank you. Thank you.
Jim?
Thank you. With your indulgence, I have two questions. The first one's real simple, and the second one's very complicated. But first, an observation. When you get to be my vintage, people that say they've taught for 30 years look to me like they started when they were 3. When you look in perspective, I even think Danny's young. My first question
That's
is
scary.
this. Who are the private colleges? That's the simple question.
Okay, you're testing my memory, but Newman comes on board this fall, Tabor this fall. This summer it was Bethany, sorry. I have a school in my former district called Bethel. Bethany, St. Mary's, Mid-America, and I think that's it.
Okay.
The 4 now, and then we have 2 more partners coming on. So it's been great to form that strong community of practice across the public and the private systems.
Okay, now the complicated part. We've spent a lot of money on letters, but we have a finite amount. I mean, so that's, unless we have some other funding source, that's coming to an end. And correct me if I say anything wrong. I see this as a tremendous opportunity to continue our emphasis on making sure that every teacher has the opportunity, not has the opportunity, has the obligation to be, every student has the opportunity to have somebody teaching them that has the skills to do that. It's my understanding that pre-service teachers are going to have that training.
Yeah, so pre-service teachers across the state are already receiving this training built into their pre-service programs that are accredited, of course, by KSDE. Okay. So pre-service teachers, yes, they have this. And this opportunity was really looking at in-service teachers and bringing them up to what does the latest research say? What do we now know is working? What can we now implement? How can we look at our systems within the schools and change and revise and implement new things so that we have a greater impact?
And if I may add,
yes.
Mr. Porter, so the Science of Reading 1 and 2 courses for undergraduates were revised and improved a year ago. We will continue to look at those to make sure that what we're learning in foundations is accessible to our pre-service teachers. So the faculty hear me say a drumbeat of how are we applying it, what experiences do undergraduates have to apply it, and what kind of coaching support, meaning mentor teachers and all that. So they are receiving it, but we're going to get even better at delivering that. Then the other scope, we are only touching right now pre-K through 6th grade teachers. Our secondary educators are asking, are hungry for tools. So we want to work with you on next step, and we're already providing some experiences for paraeducators. So thank you for that question. It is complex, but together I think we can create a comprehensive plan that allows us to ensure every educator has this information and skill.
Okay, I haven't gotten to the complex part yet.
Great.
You have 1,500 scholarships.
Probably can get as many as 2,000 this
and
fiscal
there are
year.
probably more teachers than that that need that program. And we're going to constantly have people move in from other states that may not have the pre-service. So I'm asking, this department has limited and decreasing resources. So to say add to the budget, it's probably not so you talked about coming back and talking about how we can help work together to make sure that we can continue this program so that every child has that opportunity. And I would like to not wait to start that conversation. So I appreciate you saying, Dr. Lane, Cindy, I appreciate you saying that you want to come back and talk to us, but I would encourage us to do that sooner rather than later.
Whenever the chair calls, we will be here. And we also have efforts now this summer into the next session to meet with as many legislators as possible to show them the data, to show them what we're doing collectively, and to ensure they understand that literacy is an economic priority for Kansas. If you are not literate, you do not have access to a quality life. And so we want to work with you on that as well.
Thank you for what you're doing. We really appreciate it. And thank you, Madam Chair, for your indulgence.
Absolutely. Thank you. Did you have anything more? Did you make it through? Okay, wonderful. Thank you. I really appreciate you coming and sharing with us. We wanted to hear, and I will share because there were a couple of us at the celebration at the end of the pilot, and we were able to speak with some teachers and hear the panel discussion, and the coaching was obviously a huge, huge piece of it. So, but we did get the word at our table, and you were there. I don't know if you caught, but we have this whole thing about our hair being on fire, and that teacher sitting at our table, she didn't say hair, but she did say fire. She was fired up, like this was real. And so I and Randy were like, yep, there's the fire. We need that. So we're seeing that, we're hearing that. And so we're all, we're going to be combustible together, right? We're just going to create the bonfire and we're going to keep moving. So it was just, it was great to see them there in that moment, to be able to celebrate with them what they've learned and how excited they are to start back into a new year. It's just fascinating. So that's why we've got everybody coming in today, so we can keep beating that drum, as you say, to make sure we're continuing everything we can do to help our educators. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Did anybody else have anything else? I didn't see anything on the screen, so okay. Thank you. And next up, we're just going to keep this train rolling, is Phillips Fundamental Learning Center with their alphabetic phonics course. Janine Phillips, thank you, ma'am, for coming up. Thank you so much.
Everybody. I'm thrilled to be here. I speak for a very large staff when I say we are very excited to be on the at-risk list as well as have the seal for literacy. So thank you, Dr. Watson, for that opportunity and conversation, and Chair Hopkins for that, and all the rest of you who have been involved in this project. I'm starting on this slide with a picture of myself and Gretchen Andiel. Gretchen was my co-founder of Phillips Fundamental Learning Center. She was the inspiration in my life that changed my life and changed my son's life, and thousands of kids since. She would be standing here beside me. However, she passed 2 years ago on July 4th. So I use her as that person who set the vision and the direction for Phillips Fundamental Learning Center. This is us. This is our new building. I know many of you have been there, visited. If you haven't, we'd love to have you come. We have a school for children. We started in 2014 of children all with severe to profound dyslexia. They attend our school. They receive reading instruction, specialized reading instruction, but they also have science, art, all those areas of classwork for their superpowers. We start children at 5. We need them to move back to schools of their parents' choice by the time they're 10. We have 40 staff members. We just kind of put this together yesterday, who have altogether 455 combined years of teaching science of reading. So very experienced staff. We've been doing this a very long time as a nonprofit 501c3. I love this little button. This is awesome. Our mission statement. This is new. We are in the process of strategic planning right now with a large group of professionals, and we've kind of shortened this down. Our first part of our mission wraps around the children, empowering children primarily who are dyslexic. This is our focus. These are the kids who have been left behind for 25 years in our state. The secondary part of our mission is to make sure parents and educators understand what it takes to teach children with dyslexia how to read, write, and spell appropriately. And finally, enlighten parents. We see many parents over the course of a week who are very concerned, very confused, have not heard the word dyslexia. So this is what we spend. We raise a lot of money as a nonprofit to provide these services for the Kansas community. So everybody always asks me why. This is the big question. I heard Dr. Lane use that same question. This is my why. This was Cooper Phillips, my youngest son. This was the summer in between his kindergarten and first grade year. This summer, we did not know why he struggled so much in school. He had a miserable kindergarten year in Colorado, and nobody could figure out what was up. He threw up inside of the school building every single day. It eventually led to 14 different medical professionals trying to figure out what was wrong. Psychiatrists, psychologists, specialists in the area of literacy development, language, etc. Nobody could figure it out. We moved to Wichita from Denver that summer, and this was that summer. That summer, I saw my child return healthy. We kind of called him a mess. This was him. He was always in the mud doing something very creative. He was bright. He was fun. He was an engineer, but he could not learn letters. So once we moved back to Wichita, that was when I met Gretchen. And she said, you really need to think about dyslexia. The schools did test him, did not find him to be dyslexic, but a reading teacher in the public school system in 1992 said to me, you need to go see an educational psychologist. I ran to an educational psychologist who said, your son is profoundly dyslexic and Kansas doesn't have anything to do to help you. I went back to Gretchen, and she said, you must go to Dallas, Texas to learn how to teach him. So I did, and I continued to go to Dallas for 6 years so I could bring the program to Kansas. I love this picture because this was me. This is how I felt. It represents how I felt when I was in third grade. I was a non-reader. I didn't know why. I didn't know why others could learn to read and I couldn't. And I never did figure it out until my 6th year at Wichita State University in elementary education when a professor, 2 weeks before I was graduating, pointed me out and he said, you are dyslexic. I'd never heard the word. I couldn't believe it. I was stunned. Waited for the class to be over, and I walked up to him and I said, how did you know? I've never heard the word. I don't even know, but I can't even pronounce the word. and he said, I can tell by your writing. You have the writing of a second grader. Writing was hard. If you struggle to read, you will struggle to write. And I thought I did pretty well, but also I knew it took me a lot of time and it was hard. So that was when I found out I was dyslexic. When Cooper was then recognized as dyslexic about 11 years later, 12 years later, I looked at the psychologist and I said, oh my goodness, is it hereditary? And he said, yes, it's extremely hereditary. So a lot of things that I didn't know from hearing I was dyslexic came to pass with Cooper. So thank goodness for Gretchen sending me to Dallas, because I landed in a program called Alphabetic Phonics. That's the at-risk label that we have is for Alphabetic Phonics. So I wanted to explain a little bit about the program itself. It was designed by Eli Cox. There are several alphabet phonics or other terms used, and actually we were put incorrectly on the at-risk list at first with the wrong names. So it's really, that's when we added the Cox in parentheses. I was very lucky to meet Eli Cox. She was a pioneer in the field of instructing educators and parents how to teach children with dyslexia. She trained, I thought this was crazy, she trained with Anna Gillingham. When we talk about Orton Gillingham, Anna was very, very instrumental in designing the program. And she trained in 1958. That would have been when I was 3 in Kansas City. In 1965, she designed alphabetic phonics with Lucius Waits, a neurologist at Texas Scottish Rite Hospital in Dallas. In 1975, she taught at Scottish Rite Dean Memorial Learning Center, where she was director of the teacher training unit, a position she held until '86. The most important is she started the certification group called for Alphabetic Phonics, which is academic language therapist. That's the certification that everybody gets when they go through the course, and after they teach children for about 2 years before you can certify. To be an academic language therapist who's certified, which you don't have to certify, but for us it's important, it's the highest level. To reach the academic language therapist certification, you must have today a master's degree. We can work with the teachers as they get their master's degree, and we're set up with 2 universities to do that. It takes 200 seat time hours with us over the course of 2 years, 700 clinical teaching hours recorded, 10 demonstration lessons where mentors go out and actually record and watch lessons, and then pass the academic language therapy competency test to become a certified academic language therapist. So it's very stringent. It's something that I was asked to do many, many years ago, thank goodness. Because it makes an incredible difference when you've gone through this kind of training and you've been mentored at this level. These people for the past 25 years that we have trained have been private therapists working in schools, in communities, setting up their own centers. We started intensive teacher training for the classrooms across Kansas about 8 years ago, and that's been a real focus since. This is the entrance to our building. I thought I'd give you a quick tour. This is where our children, parents enter. We call this the hug, and we call it the hug. Gretchen named it the hug because she said, I want a place where when people walk in with their children, they feel that we care about them, that we're here to help. As you see the fireplace, that's the assessment area, which to today's date, actually, we counted an assessment coming in today. We've assessed 4,389 children specifically for dyslexia. Teacher training classroom. We have two teacher training rooms that we can collapse a wall, open it up, and we installed state-of-the-art audio visuals so we can virtual training around the world. Now we can train anywhere. Our accreditation requirements insist on the individual having face-to-face contact. So if we're teaching somebody in another country, they must join the class at the time that we're offering it Central Daylight Time. So it's interesting. We'll see them. Their time might be 1 a.m, and they'll have to work through with us. It's required, and it's amazing. No one has ever complained about that, which I think that's kind of mind-blowing. Andale Teacher Literacy Institute is named for Gretchen. Its mission is to empower parents and educators. We organized this Andale Teacher Training Institute in 2001. I put the numbers here of those individuals that we have trained, qualified instructors, which if you have a center, you must have a qualified instructor involved with your center. We've basically groomed 12 of those across the state. Certified academic language therapists, which has been really, really hard to get them to certify because the number of years that they must practice. So 242, most of them in Kansas. We have a new level called practitioner level, which is requiring less hours of instruction and practice. And you can see this is brand new, and we have 162. Alphabetic phonics for 60 hours, which is the CALP. We've trained 1,200, and you can read on down. I think what is really exciting for me are the numbers of parents and educators who've been through our conferences and our other outreach programs. So we're getting pretty close to 10,000 individuals who have attended those courses and classes. These are our higher learning partners and accreditations. ALTA, we are accredited by the International Multisensory Structured Language Education Council. That's a big word, but very, very important. It sets the standards for accreditation for groups across the country. So, Rolf Literacy Academy, very quickly. This is the part of the building that really, I think everybody who goes through it feels the presence of Frank Lloyd Wright. This was a plan that Wichita State had as Plan B to the Corbin Education Center that was never built. We found the plans in the maintenance shed at WSU. We pulled them out. We loved them. WSU said, absolutely, take them and build it. And we had to redesign it, but many of the things you'll see in the building are from his original design, including the 6 major classrooms for the kids' superpowers and then the small reading room. So again, all of that was worked into his plan. He actually designed it for young children kindergarten through second grade was what his original plan was designed for. It was fascinating to find this plan and see that moving kids from class to class was in his vision at the time. Our first objective is definitely, as I said, to empower the children. Again, we have parents who have brought their children to us we accept them at 5. They must leave by the time they're 10 and transfer to a middle school. So many testimonials we have collected over the transformation of these children. I always start with this slide because time and time again, I have to say dyslexia is not about reading backwards. We don't see backwards, we don't read backwards, and it's still the number one concept of dyslexia. So Gretchen and I have spent 30 years correcting that myth. It is a specific learning disability that is biological basis in the brain. There is a different way that individuals with dyslexia process language, how they hear it, how they speak it. That was one of the first things I noticed about Cooper. He couldn't understand instructional language. He couldn't follow directions, and the teachers had a difficult time understanding him. That's what we look for in pre-K and kindergarten kids. This disability is characterized by difficulties taking the symbol and mapping it to the sound, and then the opposite, taking the sound and putting a symbol to it. Therefore, if you can't do that, you don't read accurately and you sure don't read quicker. So again, that's what I call the down and dirty way to capture dyslexia, is ask a second or third grader to read to you. You will hear it. You will hear the lack of fluency. So again, it's not difficult to find these kids when you know what you're looking for. That's why it's critical now that dyslexia is identified as a learning disability that our teachers get the training they need. When Gretchen and I first started back in '98 looking at NAEP scores, you'll see Kansas is the red line. And I know there's a lot of debate over the NAEP scores. NAEP scores, we've been watching every other year those scores for many years now. Kansas was ranked 7th in the nation back in '98, and you will see how it's fallen. And we are now, when you look at NAEP scores, we are now in 37th place. So as Gretchen and I watched this, we kept saying to ourselves, what we know to do with children who are dyslexic, we knew worked with those kids who were neurotypical. They just didn't have the opportunity at the information and teaching instruction. I think the more concerning as we're running the data, looking at it right now, is these are the disaggregated data for those reading below basic. That means basically they can't read but few words, and those words are sight words. So this is the latest report, and it's kind of tough to get to. And when you disaggregate it and you realize that children who are Black, 71% of them cannot read. By 4th grade, they cannot read but a few words. So we have a lot of work to do. And this is a focus that years ago we were challenged by Barry Downing, asked us to do a pilot study, and I'm going to show you very quickly here in a minute the results of that study. Again, it's not hard to capture. This is what we see. This is from the test of written language. You give them a picture, you ask them to write about the picture in third grade, fourth grade, and this is what you see. You will see misspellings, you will see awkward sentences, but you will see the thought that's gone behind it. So bright children, oftentimes brilliant children, who just have never been taught through the science of reading how to read, write, and spell. This I deleted from my original presentation. It's not, I decided I need to shorten it, so I did take it out. I don't know if you've seen the Dear Colleague letter. It was developed in 2015. This was the second go-round, where it made sure that parents and individuals understood the importance of children with dyslexia qualifying for special ed. So this was a letter we were asking or telling parents, hand this out in your schools, because this does establish that intervention needs to happen for your child. Basically, our parents didn't get anywhere with this letter, and that's why I thought I should just take it out. But it does, I think, make a point that we've known about dyslexia for a long time. We know we've got to teach these kids differently, and we know they haven't had the opportunity to get intensive different instruction. This was the Paul and Barry Downing Charitable Foundation project. Barry challenged me in 2007. Took me 2 years to put this pilot project together with an idea of going into the lowest performing schools, asking those special educators to join in our training. He paid for it. The teachers were trained first in the summer of 2009. We had 40 teachers involved in the first pilot, and the second summer we had another 40. So we ended up with 82 trained individuals within 23 of the 259 schools. These educators pulled the children into small groups of 4 for an hour every day. Barry challenged me with bottom 10th percentile. And I said to him, Barry, those kids generally who are dyslexic are at the 20th percentile. I'm not sure this is going to work. This is, really, really low. He said, well, we're going to find out. So those educators all pulled these children every day for that year and delivered the alphabetic phonics program. And we dipped it down. He wanted it early education. That was the other thing. I wasn't sure. This had not been done really with a kindergarten pilot. We were all shocked by the results. This is the AIMSweb results at the end of 2010 with the kindergarten kids. This is when we realized we've got to start early. We've got to start much earlier than third or fourth grade with finding the kids and intervening. These children that you see here, I'll go to the next. This is what was astounding when we compared it against the national mean level, that you will see that we had a control group at Gordon Parks, which is the red bar there. National mean is blue. So these kids went from the bottom 10th percentile to meet the national mean within that year. It blew all of us away. The second, these teachers went on in instructing that school year. The second year, we then added another 20 or 40 teachers to the project. First grade, we had the same results, and this is where I'll tell you that in about the 6th week of the project, I finally had time to get out and look and visit all these classrooms, and 95% of these children were Black and living in poverty. that is what is represented here. We were not able to say to their parent, we could see those kids who were dyslexic, but we weren't allowed to use that word at that time. So in the second year, this is actually still the first year of first grade, where we had the same exceptional results from the project. It was an amazing project. These teachers gave it their heart and soul, and it made a huge difference for these kids. Barry did follow some of these kids on. He has the top learning centers in Wichita, so they did continue to collect data and watch how these kids then did exceptionally well throughout their school years in 259. So again, I'm talking to all of you. The Kansas world is going to get better because of your interest and what you have done to focus on not only improving reading for all children, but also those children with dyslexia. It's been a long journey for those parents and those teachers who've been trying to teach them. This too was supposed to be pulled off because
Kids want to know.
I chose to actually show this video, which this is Skyline School District. They are part of what we're calling the Points of Light, which I'll explain in just a second.
So why we're all in the group is we're all obviously dyslexic. There was only one fifth grader that was tested with dyslexia, and then there were 2 6th and 1 7th and 1 8th. So they decided to put us all together in one group. Sometimes we will do the quartiles with the quartiles in the dictionaries, and we do stuff like coding, and then at the end we normally read.
I didn't want her to go get the training and then come back and we try to fit it into public school model. The table was totally cleared off. I wanted her to go get the training and come back and tell me what we needed to do for kids.
Last year, it was a struggle bus for me. I have to admit, it was hard for me to read. When I found out that I was dyslexic, I was kind of shocked. And then when I got these lessons, like my grades, right now, I have straight A's right now. I improved a lot.
I just didn't like school at the time at all. And then once we started doing this class, and I realized that it's not my fault that I wasn't really good at reading, I thought that it was the greatest thing in the world, because now I'm able to read in class, read 3 paragraphs in class out loud to everybody well, and it's changed my life.
Dyslexia is not a disease. It's not contagious at all. It's a superpower. Exactly.
It's a superpower. Specifically, I have one student who came in reading at his fall screener was 12 words per minute, is now reading 74 words a minute. So that is not yet grade level, but that is huge. This is where lives are changed. This is proof that his life going forward will be completely different than if he had not received dyslexia therapy. We need more dyslexia therapists in the schools. There are at least 2 more students in my classroom that should be receiving therapy, and we were full. So the schools would definitely benefit from the service that she's providing.
So this was a concept that we came up with in 2023. It's called Points of Light. And we had the Patterson Family Foundation as well as the Koch Foundation fund this concept, and it's been unbelievable. What we did is we reached out to schools all across Kansas and said we would like to set you up if you are interested in a Point of Light project, which the idea has been to invite and fund individuals from each of those points you see out there, from a school actually building, who is part of the special ed team. They then go back, they teach children for a year, they come back for their second year of training. We then wait until they are CAUT level and qualified, and then they become facilitators at each of these centers so that we can ask them to invite parents or other educators into their building, and then through our technology, we jump into all of these centers where we do the instruction, but those individuals mentor, they answer the questions of the administration, they help the teachers understand what these children with dyslexia need and what it takes to teach them, and then they teach them. So it's phenomenal. It's working well. I'll be going to the Patterson Foundation in October for a meeting where we talk about the extension of this concept as well. And with that, I will tell you also that our ESSER funding was extended as well. So we have the opportunity, as long as the funds last, to offer teacher scholarship opportunities through next June. So that is an opportunity there for teachers as well. So thank you for
Janine,
your time.
can you tell us what have you specifically heard from educators who have gone through this in all your training, and how they're able to implement it, and just, how it's, pick one in your mind maybe that just give us some feedback.
We always ask for surveys at the end, and then our mentors are jumping into those schools and mentoring alongside these teachers for 2 years. We hear incredible things all the time. And the same thing I felt when I went to Dallas, Texas. Why didn't I have this knowledge during my elementary education? All teachers, a matter of fact, in the Downing Project, most of those educators we had were paras. They didn't have any background in education, and they, in many cases, outperformed the lead educators, special educators, because they were the teachers. They were the individuals working with the kids. Their lives were really, everybody's lives are changed. And yes, we have so many testimonials about that.
So exciting. Jim?
This isn't a question, this is a testimonial. I have 2 grandchildren that were struggling reading. Because I knew Janine, I contacted her, and she gave me the name of a tutor that they're still using.
Oh, wow.
But my grandchildren are thriving thanks to people that you have trained. So this is not a question, it's a thank you.
You're welcome. My grandson is also thriving. Cooper, being profoundly dyslexic, has the youngest, or the middle child, who's a boy, was profound as well. So we were able to get him started in kindergarten, and it's made, life-changing for him as well.
Dennis?
Thank you, Janine. It was a revealing evening when I spent in that seminar in your building, and it was a blessing to see a lot of parents there. I think that's something that's special about your institution there, is that you actually train the family in how to, navigate this. I was going to ask about Cooper. How old is he now? And
he's doing really well. He works for Vornado, and he does all the importing, the package designing. These kids are, grow up to be engineers, designers, very good at that area, and that's what he's doing. He lives in Wichita, so we're very blessed to have our grandkids there and be able to, be with them a lot. Just got back from Colorado. They almost killed me. That's what I'll tell you. We hiked every day, river rafting, the whole thing. So I'm glad I'm here today and alive. That's what I can share. We zip-lined. I don't know if you've ever done that, but I'll never do it again.
I've always said I don't think I can.
No, it was terrifying.
I have, and I will at any time.
I would like to jump one time from an airplane, but I don't think I'm going to live that long.
No, I'll never do that.
Well, I do also encourage, like Dennis said, the building is beautiful, and just to see what's happening there. And just, again, one more thing and one more way that our teachers can get what they need to impact our classrooms. If you get a chance to watch yesterday, and we had a piece where 259 we had kindergarten teachers, and they were just talking about, they did go through Phillips, it was letters, but boy, how they were implementing. So it's all that instruction, wherever it works for those educators to get it from, so we can impact the classroom. And we are going to see, and I did not realize how many points you had, but I know I've talked to the Copeland teachers, the Cimarron teachers, the Dodge City teachers. Like it is huge, and we've seen them not retire because they were like, oh no, I'm in. Like we're doing this. So just really want to continue just to offer what we can, and when it's in state, it's even better. So between the different courses we have, there's just much we can do with the thousands of teachers we need to impact. It's huge. So.
It is huge. And with the thousands of children, when you talk about dyslexia being 1 in 5, that's a lot of kids every year. There was a time period where 259 welcomed private therapists into the school buildings, and you guys, that was monumental. We made a huge difference for kids. And then that left. That opportunity was exited. So again, I think there are a lot of ideas still out there of ways we can serve these children effectively and hopefully catch up with the numbers.
Thank you so much for coming. We
absolutely.
appreciate
Thank
you and with
for
all
the
the work you guys
opportunity.
do. We are going to take a break, board, so 10 minutes, and we'll be back at 10:31 for the next presentation. Okay, absolutely. Okay, we are going to start round two. And we are going to have a presentation on Read, Redefined by Jane Hayes and Amy Taylor. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you so much. Hello, everybody. Good morning. Thank you so much for letting us be here. It is absolutely humbling to get to stand in front of you, so thank you for this opportunity. I am Amy Taylor, and let's get started. So, teaching in the real world. So let's think about this. All the different parts of schools. What do schools need to make them a better, well-rounded environment? Let's say we make a list. Okay, on that list, you might see after-school programs, technology, arts and education, PE. These are all items that teachers and administrators are going to write grants, request donations, hold fundraisers for. These are all things that help the school environment be better, more well-rounded, right? But all of these things are just that. They're physical things. You've heard so much about structured literacy and the 6 components of structured literacy. However, where's structured literacy on that list? According to the National Reading Panel, a teacher cannot be fully replaced by a program or a computer. Research indicates that teacher guidance and interaction with at-risk students is crucial for effective reading strategies, specifically reading comprehension and individual needs for students. While technology can be an extremely valuable tool, it should not be a substitute for a teacher's role in the learning process. Unfortunately, it's easier to find funding for the physical things in the buildings. However, education isn't about the things that we buy. Education is about the investment in and from our teachers. So, thank you for investing in our educators.
Good morning. My name is Jane Hayes, and I am the co-owner of Read Redefined. Amy came to me several years ago and says, hey, I got this crazy idea. And so a lot of things I just blame on her. So just heads up on that. One of the things that we know is that school districts have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars when they are implementing curricula. Curricula is extremely expensive. It has to be budgeted for. You have to make plans for it. You have to have the buy-in. You have to do all of your research in order to do due diligence. However, all the things with that buy-in, again, these curriculum programs, they send you this stuff. You get the mats, you get the letters, you get the teacher's manual, you get the student manual, you get the decodable readers, you get the plastic letter tiles, you get the blocks for them to move during phonological awareness. Again, it's just stuff. The thing that we actually need to work on and help our students and our teachers to get better at, thanks to all of you, is that we have the training. We're getting the opportunity to do the professional development. So thank you for that. Someone once told me just because you get a cookbook doesn't mean it doesn't make you a chef. Otherwise, Julia Childs would have been just fine after she had only written the book. However, she also had a cooking show. She was the beginning of the Food Network. She also had millions of women who wrote her asking questions about certain and specific recipes and how could they make them better, or has she tried this, or what went wrong when I did have this. What we know through all of this is that teachers need the implementation. That has been the component that has been missing for so long. Several of you have heard about Sold a Story. Sold a Story, if you have not heard, is a podcast. It was done by Emily Hanford. She really came out with Sold a Story kind of post-COVID. However, she had several episodes that she had prior to COVID. She's kind of combined them all together now. So if you have not, I highly recommend it. Emily was interviewing an educator, and the educator said if it was left up to the teachers on how they taught reading, they closed their door and they did their own thing. And Emily Hanford referred to that as choose your own adventure. my time in education, I have taught every grade, 2.5-year-old preschool through graduate programs. The only grade I have not yet taught is 2nd grade. I'm thinking I could probably figure it out at this point in time. However, I've seen this time and time again. Back when I used to teach 4th and 5th grade, back in the 90s, it was one of those that we did have a series called Choose Your Own Adventure. It was actually a book, and you read the beginning, and then you got to pick which fork in the road did you want to take. What I have found is that students who move into districts who are new to a building, they did not pick the house that they buy. They do not pick the school that they go to. They do not pick the principal at that school. They don't get to choose their teacher. And they also have never had input on the professional development that that teacher had. No, I'm not turning the reins over to a 5-year-old. I taught kindergarten for way too long for that. However, one of the things that I do know is that the student who has the least amount of control is the person who's most impacted by all of those other decisions. Everything we know, because teachers have had to put together and choose their own adventure in the past, and unfortunately, even currently, there are some teachers who have now had the letters training, or they have had the training from Fundamental Learning Center or ours, but when they come to the building, there are some roadblocks that they have to work through on their own, which is just horrific for that teacher who knows better but can't do better. We also know that not everything in the world labeled structured literacy is actually really and truly structured literacy. Publishing companies are designed to sell books. And so if I put that label on there, you're going to buy my book because it says it has structured literacy in there. But the teacher has to be able to have access to all of that. One of the things that is different when it comes to programs like what we offer, it's not the sit and get. You're not going to be given the manual. You're not going to be told, here you go, good luck, and off you go. It's one of those that we talk about, you have people. So instead of creating our own adventure or leaving teachers to their own adventure, we're going to talk about quickly what makes us different. You've actually had several different today's presentations so far to this day. We are all so grateful. And one of the things that we're going to talk about that's the same is kind of the fact that education is a participation sport. Now, excuse me, Dr. Watson, because I did not pick one of your sports. However, if I go, I was a football mom for about that much, so that's about as much football as I can actually have a conversation about. However, what I do know is that we have in our world proficiency competencies. Those proficiency competencies are really where we're doing and looking at our coaching. What is coaching? If you have a sport, you have to have a coach. What is coaching? Coaching is, well, Saturday morning, you come in, you watch film. You watch over all the things that went great the night before. You kind of check on some things that did not go quite as planned. And you make a plan for how am I going to better change what I have. So we have this idea. However, we're not done when you're coaching. It's just not about film. Then the coach, particularly in football, it's usually a blackboard or a dry erase board. Could be a clipboard, depending upon where they are in their moment. There's arrows, there's X's and O's, there's direction, there's instruction. This is what I want you to do when we come up against this next week. Then we also have the players. The players are hitting the field. One of the things that I can tell you is coaches are not done once the players enter the field. Coaches are constantly tweaking and redirecting in order to get the best expectation and the best outcome for that play. So allowing the 3 programs that we have heard from this morning, who all have this coaching and mentoring capacity and capability and investment in our teachers, I want to reiterate, thank you, because it's something that's different. That's not all the not all the things that are out there are available. So we appreciate the fact that you have not only added us to this seal of literacy, but you have also added us to the at-risk list. We just get to be the third opportunity to talk about coaching. However, as teachers, okay, well, we got to bring it back into education, right? For teachers, watching film is your data. We're supposed to be a data-driven instruction. We are supposed to take, after our assessments, what do we do? How do the kids work? What needs to be improved? And it tells me exactly what I need to work on. It's right there in my data. However, one of the things that we also know is not all teachers have actually ever seen the data for their own classrooms, or they have never been taught how to interpret that data for their classroom. We also know that when it comes to instruction, we have to make sure that we're using research-validated best practices. There are so many things that are out there. We are fortunate enough that we have access to them, and we need to make sure that that access is always provided. And teachers need to be provided with a safe space to go out and practice. So one of the things that we will talk about is we will talk about that application component that is in our Read Redefined courses. We also have the IDA Accreditation Plus, so thank you very much for allowing that and adding that onto your list of credentials. And because we have the key proficiencies throughout the coaching and the instruction, and because IDA is a part of that, those who have finished our course can A, turn in their paper and get their seal of literacy, which is something that they are going to want to do. However, they can additionally choose to go and take the K-Peary test. I know several of you have heard about the K-Peary test. It's the test from International Dyslexia Association. And then they can have certification through CERI, which is the Center for Effective Reading and Instruction. There are 3 levels of certification that one may receive from CERI. And in that, it depends on how much of this time and practice and this going back and implementation that you have already done.
Well, I suggest you gentlemen invent a way to put a square peg in a round hole. Rapidly.
Okay, people, listen up. People upstairs handed us this one, and we gotta come through. We gotta find a way to make this fit into the hole for this, using nothing but that. Let's get it organized.
Okay, let's build a filter.
Maybe get some coffee going too.
Now, I've only recently stepped out of the classroom, and it's one of those teaching post-COVID I can guarantee you is not the same as teaching pre-COVID. But one of the things that I can tell you is that teachers who do not have the materials that they need are doing exactly this. I still have to meet my standards. I still want my outcomes to improve, but how do I go forward and how do I do this? This is what I have. This is the dollars that we have spent in our district, and this is what I have. So one of the things that we have done is we actually have 2 courses that are pathways to the seal. The first one being aimed at building educators. That can be the administration as well as the classroom teacher, anyone who is involved in any tier 1. We invite administrators to come through because administrators are going to be the ones who are doing their walkthroughs. They need to make sure that they're hearing the words, that they're seeing the words. And it's wonderful to have someone who can back you up in your building to say, hey, I really am doing this. How can I coach me? What can I do next in order to get better scores? So in order to do that, we have teachers or administrators bring their curriculum that was district provided. They bring all of their stuff. And in doing so, we have a 40-hour synchronous instruction. That means it's not recorded. You're not watching it later. We are live. Whether it's online or whether it's in person, it's going to be all at the same time. Within that, we have 5 hours of this demonstration application. 5 hours of opportunities for teachers to say, how do I teach morphology? Where is it in my book? And now I know how to put it into and apply it. So it's a little bit farther beyond and definitely a little bit different than any of the other opportunities that are out there. Those who choose this path of taking and wanting additional certification can take their KPRE and get the structured literacy classroom teacher certification. You know, all things in education, we have to make it alphabet soup, and then it's hard to remember what it all stands for. However, we also need something to help our frontline teachers. We have these reading specialty teachers, the ones who are supposed to be the experts. They're going to be your SPED teachers, your ESOL, your tier 2, tier 3 interventionists, your coaches, your title teachers, all those places in the school where I've got this one friend who needs a little bit extra help. They're going to need a bigger tool bag. They're going to need more things. And the way that we do that is through 80 hours of synchronous instruction. Again, it's live. You're going to be there. You're going to see my face. They have 10 hours of demonstration and application, 5 of which is within the course, and 5 of it is once they have gone back to their classroom or whatever teaching environment they are in, so that we can apply and we can help coach them through those individual moments that they're coming across in real time. One of the things that Margaret Mead says is what people say, what people do, and what people say they do are not often the same things. But one of the things that Amy and I take pride on is the fact that what we do, we have and are in the trenches. Amy and I both have current teaching licenses. We both have the seal of literacy on our teaching license. We are the ones who, again, I've just recently stepped out of the classroom. We have walked the halls. We have both implemented what our best practice is in the actual classroom. When teachers come to us, these are our colleagues. These are the people who we would see in the lunchroom. These are the people who teach down the hall from us. We're having those types of conversations with them. It's not a, I know better, you know better. It's a, hey, let's work together as a team. And that teamwork is hugely important. We also are able and capable of looking at things from different perspectives. Obviously, when it comes from structured literacy, I talked about being an educator. However, Amy and I are both adjunct professors at Newman University, where we are able to, and we have written the reading specialist program, where teachers can actually get this and then take this directly in and get that bump up and get that master's degree. And it's going to be something that's going to be based in the science of reading and structured literacy. We also look at things as interventionists and dyslexia therapists, because we ourselves are currently working with our own caseloads of students. So we're working one-on-one. Because we are virtual, I have students from Philadelphia and Boston all the way to Bakersfield, California, and a whole great big lot right here from our great state of Kansas. So it's one of those, that diversity is one of those, it's hugely helpful. And somebody had made the point earlier, with every student I teach, I always learn something. I learned something new. I see somebody interpret something that I have never seen before. It does not matter that I have been in education as long as I have been. I can still come to and find something out that's different. Additionally, Amy and I are both parents of children with dyslexia. But I'm going to stand here and tell you a completely different story. Because I had my training, I was able to recognize all these red flags when Katie was 3 and 4. I have the success story. I know what early intervention looks like. I got to experience that as a parent. So Katie went through school. She probably had about 7 years of remediation, 101, making our way slowly. Part of it you have to work on based on age. You're not going to talk about direct objects with a kindergartner. You kind of have to go back and revisit that later. But it was one of those that my kid got to go to college on an SAT scholarship. My kid got to take the AP classes while she was in high school. My kid graduated in 3 years during COVID from college with honors. So the story that I have is a little bit different, and I don't often share my story because So many parents are so devastated by the story and the path that they have had to walk. I don't want to be the one who is rubbing it in their face, so to speak. But I go, we have this opportunity, and thanks to all of you, we get this opportunity to get these things to those kindergarten, first grade, second grade, pre-K, and have it followed up with third, fourth, and fifth grade teachers, sixth grade teachers for what we need and what the students need, that school is a safe and wonderful place that they will want to be. So, the one thing that we do know is that doesn't matter what it is, structured literacy really is what needs to happen. So thank you for allowing us this opportunity to work with our colleagues in order to implement what we need and where we need to go forward, and a safe place for teachers to be able to practice their craft, to practice what needs to be said when you have the students sitting right in front of you. It's done in that no judgment free zone. So it's fabulous in that it's a constant coaching, constant back and forth team that we make up. So in fine fashion, as you have heard, everybody's at school right now. So therefore, you will also get another video of what we have as well. We have kind of taken a diversity. We have some parents. We have school administrators who have taken the program. We have classroom teachers. We have special ed title teachers. We just have a plethora of different experiences, and so we try to present that for you.
What teachers and parents have to say about Read Redefined. Thanks to Read Redefined, I now have the application piece needed to explicitly and systematically teach the science of reading to students. Taking dyslexia training from Read Redefined before my first year of teaching has given me the confidence and tools I need to help struggling readers from day one. Read Redefined offers quality training, seamlessly integrating the latest research in the science of reading. Their complete curriculum comprehensively addresses every strand of Scarborough's reading rope, featuring a distinctive approach to building background knowledge and vocabulary that sets it apart. Furthermore, Read Redefined significantly reduces teacher preparation time, returning valuable hours to educators, all while maintaining a highly diagnostic and prescriptive instructional framework. Jane and Amy did a fantastic job creating their Read Redefined structured literacy program. Even after all of my years of teaching, I had never encountered such valuable information. I learned so much during those 2 weeks. As a secondary teacher and interventionist, I found this training indispensable. It equipped me with both the theoretical understanding and practical skills necessary to help my students become proficient readers and confident thinkers. I am an educator myself and would recommend this curriculum and training to all elementary teachers. It is truly life-changing for our son, and every student deserves access to this program. We were feeling helpless that he was not making growth with the public school system. Once he started receiving dyslexia services, his confidence grew and his reading flourished. He quadrupled his score on words per minute and made remarkable growth by the end of his third grade year. The school's special education team was amazed. Her teacher commented that she is so excited to see my daughter's self-confidence grow. Since working with Read Redefined, my daughter participates a lot more in class, asks for help, and has made more friends. This is huge, and to me, the most important leg of this journey. I used to cry myself to sleep because I didn't think I was good enough to ever learn how to read. If I could go back in time, I would tell myself I am good enough and I can read. These tutors are more than teachers. They're healers of hearts and minds, guiding our extraordinary children with understanding, patience, and the belief that who they are is something truly good. Okay, so kind of diving back in then. So what is structured literacy? I'm not going to go through all the details of it because I know you guys have heard this and you've heard this over and over again. So we know that it's systematic. We know that it's explicit. We know that there are 6 components to it, right? However, these standards are not tied to any specific age or grade level. These are based on research that informs the science of reading. So it's implemented, it's showing you how to use best practices in your room. Structured literacy addresses the specific needs of individual students and those who are most at risk in the school system. So let's kind of dive into a little bit of data. So as we shared earlier, we work with students, we work with teachers on collecting data, and then that data drives instruction. However, those teachers work in the school districts. So somehow we need to come up with a way to bridge the gap between our program and district requirements. Read Redefined was specifically developed to address structured literacy. We did that through using the Knowledge and Practice Standards, or KPS, by IDA, or International Dyslexia Association. The KPS is the gold standard of literacy standards, and it's also what's used in the KSDE Dyslexia Handbook today. These gold standards stress the importance of progress monitoring. Read Redefined also stresses its importance. We agree with letters. It even says it in Unit 1, Session 7. The primary purpose of progress monitoring is to help teachers determine if a particular instructional approach is working to bring students closer to a target level of reading. While we developed Read Redefined, we also stressed this importance. Educators write narrative reports that explicitly details how those students are doing. These assessments allow educators who are working one-on-one with those students to evaluate their personal performance to decide what's something I need to reteach, what's something that they got and we can move on from. However, we know this is just one test, and one test is just that. It does not make a trend. So, based on our progress monitoring, are our students making results and getting better? Absolutely they are, but that's not enough. Read Redefined works in the real world of education. We've been teachers, we've been in the trenches. Excelling within one program does not mean that translates to the classroom. A fundamental goal of Read Redefined is for at-risk students to improve within their current school setting. That's everything. Read requires norm-based progress monitoring. These norm-based assessments are the same ones that are aligned to the KSDE Reading Screening Protocol K-12. You have to use one of those. Students are given the beginning of the year, end of the year, and middle of the year to look for those students that are at risk. The combination of both the norm-based and the narrative reports of these students receiving intervention exceeds the progress monitoring requirements of the district. And it demonstrates measurable growth and progress toward the grade level performance for at-risk students. So if you go back through and you look at the graphs, it doesn't matter who gave the graphs. It doesn't matter who gave the assessment. Could have been an interventionist. Could have been a classroom teacher. Doesn't matter the assessment tool you used. Our students show growth in our program and, most importantly, in their school setting. All right, so the proof is in the attendance. Let's look at the graph just a little bit. So we can kind of see we have a kindergarten, first, and second grade year. Notice, kindergarten, they had 13 absences. First grade, 21, and then all of a sudden, second grade, holy cow, there's 0. Woo, how'd they do that? Well, it's not because the parents all of a sudden decided to get involved. Had nothing to do with that. What changed? The child started receiving explicit, systematic instruction at the beginning of the second grade year. When a child feels capable of growth and success, all of a sudden those tummy aches, they start to go away. They stop going to the nurse at the beginning of core instruction. When a teacher provides correct intervention within the first 4 to 6 weeks, there is noticeable difference in a child. You can see it as they walk down the hallway. Their heads are raised higher. Their attitude at school is much different. Teachers who are not providing explicit instruction will see it in the interactions on the playground. Interventionists are seeing a huge self-esteem surge with the tiniest bit of reading success. When we take the time to invest in our educators with the proper training, procedures, and coaching, we're investing far more than just best practices for instruction. When a teacher feels they are capable of helping students achieve growth and success, teacher retention rates rise. Teachers want to help. It really is a ripple effect. Invest in the training, invest in the teachers, and you will see an increase in far more than just test scores. Prioritize your joy. Literacy for all is our joy, until everyone can read. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And it's just so true. We know the confidence there. They'll want to walk in the doors. And thank you. It's just so good to get all the information so we're all aware, and hopefully the public, what's available for our educators, that we have amazing educators who will help them. And, in the 3 that we've heard, that is so completely obvious. So thank you for being a part of this and for driving up from Wichita. I know that's absolutely. Does anybody have any questions? Debbie, you have comments, questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. You're the one who told me D&T. So I just wanted to thank you because Jane, thank you. I do recognize now and put you together with the long letter you sent back, and I wanted to encourage our Kansas School for the Deaf task team, according together with Michelle, that I've been fascinated by this world. I've appreciated Dr. Lane, Janine, you. What it takes me to is I had a son who was very ill. I was just looking, I have 9 doctors in my phone just from his time. And I called him a doc in a box because everybody had their box of specialty. And that's what I feel like I keep hearing with our School for the Deaf, that I keep harping on, is that we have dyslexia over here and all this great training. And then we have our School for the Deaf and all their special needs with signs and their own structured reading and stuff. And I'm like trying to make these 2 worlds come together, and they're like a little magnet pushing apart, because it really, I think, is, you guys are paving the way, a new world into the cognitively normal. What's the term for that? Neurotypical world, and trying to make those strides into that neurotypical world. And I keep pushing you into the neuroatypical world. And you strike me as somebody who just really also thinks out of the box, and you're new and you're fresh. I appreciated that letter. If you might reach out to our task force people and share the same. I know you said it's outside your scope, but I think it's outside of everybody's scope. So if there's some way that y'all can find those worlds, a way to bring them together, and
because it is about everyone learning to read.
Exactly. And those parents have the same frustrations as the parents with other neurotypical, atypical, whatever issues. So
Absolutely. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Appreciate it so much. Good times. I hope everybody's learning a lot and enjoying the presentations. I know the hair's on fire. We're just going to keep going. So now we get to hear from our own Dr. Curtis and the Letters Initiative that we and KSDE have been putting out there. So we have lots going on in that world as well.
Well, thank you again. 2 days in a row. I feel just doubly honored to be here again. And when I was asked to do this presentation, I thought, you know a lot about letters. But then I thought, I'll try to bring some information maybe you don't know. And I'm even going to be so transparent as to leave my letters manuals with Deborah. You can look through my notes, my highlighted comments. So if you thought there was a mystery around it, the mystery will be no longer. You can look at the manuals for both volumes. I want to talk to you just a little bit about letters. We know when I first saw letters, I'm like, they don't even spell that right. What's that? Right? So it's language essentials for teachers of reading and spelling, because we know it has to be comprehensive. It involves spelling. It involves all of our language. And I love that it starts with the word language, because oral language from birth is the foundation for reading. So that is Letters. It is a comprehensive science of reading professional learning system. It is comprehensive in that when we think of the science of reading definition, it talks about prevention and intervention. It talks about reading and writing. So it's very comprehensive. It's evidence-based. It's nationally recognized. There are a lot of papers that have been written and research that has been done about the efficacy that it's shown across other states. You can read about the Mississippi Miracle and all of those things. It has, what I think is the most important thing it's done for our Kansas educators is to provide a common knowledge base and a common language base for instructional practice. So when a group of teachers in a school have had Letters training, they are speaking the same language, they are talking about the same things, and they've had a shared experience, and that's powerful. It is IDA accredited. The International Dyslexia Association does accredit this program. And when we were thinking about how to really move the needle in Kansas and honor local control of our school boards, what's really important for me is that it's curriculum agnostic. It does not require you to have a certain set of materials or a certain set of books. It is to be used with what your system has identified as best for your system. So it is curriculum agnostic. You can use it with the resources you have. And there's so many things as I talk, you're going to say, this sounds the same across all of these programs. But I will tell you, one of the differences that you've probably picked up from a couple of us, and there are some differences, is that this work, when we talk about Letters, is not to create literacy specialists or dyslexia therapists. This is for every classroom teacher to be able to provide the best reading instruction, writing instruction for every student throughout the day. It is for basic classroom teachers to do the very best they can in providing instruction. So when you've probably heard someone talk about core or tier 1, that's what all kids get and deserve. And then we do have tier 2, those kids that are needing some help. They were shown to be some at risk. Some of that happens in our regular classroom instruction as well. So those are the kids that this work has been supporting. Every classroom teacher doing what's best, because you know that what is good for these kids is good for all kids, but it is critical for those students that have dyslexia. Or what we now know, because we follow that science, the developmental language disorder, when we're looking at those students who come to school with limited language. What I love about this program is that when we talk about structured literacy, which is in the statement that you have made, that we will use structured literacy in our classroom curriculum, this for teachers actually models those principles. So when you look at Letters training, it is very explicit. It's very clear on what the objectives are when you're learning and you're going through your units. It is very multimodal. You are going to read, there's your manual. You're going to listen, you interact on online modules, you discuss with others, there's facilitated training. So you speak, you listen, you read, and you write. Just like we know reading instruction should be occurring, that's how this program is delivered. It is systematic. It goes through 8 units, and you can take a look at all the content right there. It is also very cumulative in that it starts with those foundational skills and builds to where those students, as they get older, are applying those skills with more complex texts. A lot of feedback given as you go through modules. You drag and you drop and you find out if you made a mistake and you get that feedback. So there's feedback provided. Also some answers in that book if you want to check yourself, and it's very interactive. So I'm going to go through that in a little bit more detail. We have 3 professional course options that we have provided for educators. The first one you hear the most about is what is listed on the screen as Lexia Letters. We refer to it as the 3rd edition or just Letters. It's a 3rd edition because as the science of reading changes, there have been other editions and additional information brought forward. And so that way we can make sure our teachers are getting current information. So that is our 3rd edition Letters. We also have letters for early childhood educators, which are for our pre-K teachers. And that also is based in the science of reading. And we have, that's an earlier edition, so it doesn't have multiple editions that we look at. And then we have Lexia for administrators. What is most exciting in the state of Kansas right now is that Lexia nationally does the training for our administrators. But you have invested in facilitator training so that not only do we have our teachers being letters trained, we are training facilitators who are in our districts who can then go on to train colleagues. And those local facilitators in our districts are able to provide our third edition letters for all of our educators, and they also are qualified. We have trainers for our early childhood letters. So there is someone in your district, or if you have less than 500 students, someone in a service center who can provide that training, who is familiar with your curriculum, is familiar with your school, familiar with how it works in your school, what screener you are using. So we have local facilitators. So we are building the capacity of all of our districts throughout Kansas to be able to carry forward and sustain this work. So that's the course options that we have right now. One thing I want to really be clear on is that there is a misunderstanding that letters, just these online modules that people take and they just answer and then they get the seal. Actually, there's 4 course components for letters, and anyone that receives the seal is expected to do all 4 parts of this training. The first is there is a manual. There is a textbook for these courses, and you can look through it and enjoy that. So there is a manual. There are online course modules that you do take. They're interactive. You read, you watch a video, there's case studies, and you answer the questions and get feedback, take unit tests. So there is an online course. Then there are also 4 live in-person. Some were in the past offered online, but ours are in person now with our local facilitators. There's 4 days of full days of professional learning that accompany each volume. So for volume 1, there would be 4 days of professional learning that you would receive in person, and in volume 2, another 4 days. So there's the print manual, there's the online modules that you go through independently, but then there's the live training where you're provided additional and more in-depth information. And then I think this is where there's a misunderstanding when people think letters is not application. Then there is part of the course called the Bridge to Practice, which to me is the most important part of the course, because that is where you take what you've learned and you apply it in your classroom with your students. You practice giving those assessments, you look at your data. And so the Bridge to Practice is huge. That's where you try what you've just learned, and then you have that opportunity to discuss it with your cohort. Some things that might be in that Bridge to Practice, there are reflective journals, like how did this go and what went well with your lesson, but you practice assessments, you have lesson plan templates for phonics instruction or a comprehension lesson. There's case studies where you have to look at the data and decide what to do with it. There's oral language development checklists, and you can kind of look in the back of that manual and see some of those things that would be required. But the Bridge to Practice brings together teachers who have received the training, have tried it out, and the Bridge to Practice allows them to do just what it says. It's a bridge to practice from the research, from the learning to actually implementing it in your classroom. So those are the 4 components of what letters training is. So I just kind of rewrote that. And I just want to emphasize, you've heard a lot of different options. I think options are great. I want you to also think of letters. We've invested a lot of time and money and energy in letters training, but I want every educator to realize it's more than just a path to the seal of literacy. So going through 2 years of professional learning with your colleagues is different than other options that we might have. Being in a cohort of teachers in your building who've gone through this training, hundreds of them possibly if you're in a big system, is different than some other options. So sometimes I've had questions where possibly we've had these great improvements made in higher education. Our teachers are coming out. They have done incredible work at higher ed to get those courses up and improved. And they take that praxis exam and they receive the seal of literacy. And then they're like, well, I don't have to do structured literacy training because I already have the seal. I took that exam. Having the seal is different than additional structured literacy professional learning that you would get in letters. So there are different options, and a district can decide what's best for them to prepare their teachers to the level that they want their teachers prepared for. Just like I think I heard Dr. Lane say, we're not done. There is still more to do. So as for the engagement in our courses, I almost hesitated. I had this slide in, and then I took this slide out, because as funding has been reinstated, I will tell you these numbers are not accurate because people are registering right now all week long for letters. They were so sad when everything was paused, and now I just received this morning like 4 more emails about cohorts that are training and being rostered. As of last week, we had 812 administrators who had either completed or were in process to complete. Early childhood educators, 1,067 in process or had completed. And the third edition, 12,572 educators who had used our licenses. There is a link on your slides to the Kansas page that gives additional information. So how do we deepen and sustain this initiative? Because I think a concern all of us should have is, so when this is done, when I've done letters training, then what? Because we've all heard implementation and coaching. There are other things we need to do. And so one of the things we've done to help sustain and deepen it is to include district leadership and administrators. Also, KSDE has established a vision for what quality instruction looks like in literacy. And so we're making sure that as we do support letters implementation, that it's in line with the vision for early literacy and 312 literacy that we have in the state. To value and celebrate those educators that have done any of this work that you've seen today. Yep, there's a seal on the license, but we need to uphold all of this hard work that they are doing. I don't know if you get my newsletter, but I try to put pictures of those cohorts as they're finishing because I'm so proud of this work that they have done. And we've done our training for our local facilitators so we can sustain it by having someone in your district who can provide the training for your district. And that gives flexibility for the amount of time it takes to complete letters, as well as when you can do that. If there's summer opportunities or after school, or you do it in full day PDs, because a district would have their own local facilitator, they would have flexibility for that. And right now we have more than 250 facilitators who are trained across 65 agency school systems, service centers, special ed co-ops, interlocals, higher ed faculty, people here at KSDE, and TASN. But I want to tell you about something even more exciting. One thing that I want to do is to provide a network for those who are our trained facilitators who are going to be moving this movement forward and training people in their system. So we came up with having a Kansas leadership, literacy leadership cadre. And I have invited all of the letters facilitators to be in this cadre. And we meet virtually. Not all of them come all the time. I had 55 on the call last night when we meet to give them additional support, give them updates on what's going on at KSDE, what is new in letters, making sure they stay current on all of that. And also the most important thing we can do is once a facilitator has their educators trained up in actual providing the letters course, making sure those people then move in to coach the implementation. And so we're building in a coaching component. And so these letters facilitators are being trained in coaching techniques. And last week, I know some of you were there, last week we had the first ever Kansas Literacy Leadership Summit. We had 117 people. The room was so full they had to bring in 2 more tables and a bunch more chairs. We weren't sure how many would come because it was the first. We had 75 letters facilitators in the room working on this. 63 were from our districts. We had 12 from different service centers who provide our training for schools that have smaller numbers of students. It was highly rated for what they felt like they got out of the situation. And I will say it was really engaging for the educators. They came early and they stayed late. Like it ended at like 4, and I needed to get our second speaker to the airport, and people wanted to stay and talk. The first half of the day was one of our own TLCs using a Plan, Do, Study, Act model of action research to help your students who struggle, how to use what you've learned in letters to actually make changes in your practice and how you would have support doing that in a school. And it was highly, I don't know, I would say, some of you were here. I'll let you speak to that. Anyway, a lot of people, a lot of excitement. And then we had Becca Silver, who is a presenter on coaching. And she came in and talked about when we face resistance for any of this, when teachers want to continue teaching the way they've always taught. She uses the analogy of you come to a 4-way stop or a stoplight, and we all stop. And sometimes the light turns green, and rarely do we just go blaring through it. You're going to get enough information, you know it's safe to move. So sometimes we have teachers that don't want to change. They don't want to move. So the idea is, what additional information do we need to give them so they feel the time is right, they have enough information, they can safely move forward and do the next step. So Becca Silver gave our half-day coaching seminar on how to work with resistance, how to support and encourage teachers. And so that was our first ever literacy summit, and the feedback I got is they can't wait to see what next year will bring. This cadre, the ones that met with me last night, is important because the science of reading will change. More research will be done, and we need to make sure our teachers in Kansas have the most recent information that they can to do the best for our Kansas kids. So we want to move from what we know to what is new, and we will continue to provide coaching, building knowledge, and expertise. One thing that's really exciting when you talk about coaching conversations is I asked the letters facilitators, what would it look like to do a great job taking what you learned in letters, what would it look like in a classroom? I want to know what you would see. What would be the actual things you would see, knowing all you know, having been through letters and the letters facilitation training? What would it look like to see it done well? And I had them generate a list of what those, and they were very specific, as in correctly pronouncing every sound when you provide that instruction. And I took that list and I gave it to partners at TNTP and those who were looking at helping us build observation tools to use in coaching conversations with teachers. And that was implemented into our new observation coaching conversation tools that we have they're available for every system in Kansas. So we're trying to bring things together, our letters facilitation, our high quality instruction, our KSDE work, and all of that together. I am really happy in this literacy leadership cadre that I have a partner in Tazan, Janelle Neer, who's done a lot of letters facilitation work. She's helping me, and she's that voice of letters trainer that's in on these meetings. So that is maybe a little more clarification on letters, and you can get probably all the information you want to know out of those manuals. There's also some links on my slides, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Jim.
Thank you. I was really happy to hear you say that materials, I'm going to say what I think I heard, and you tell me whether but materials were agnostic. Mm-hmm. And the reason, whenever I was appointed and it was announced that I was chair of the Dyslexia Task Force, within 15 minutes, I got a telephone call from a legislator who had a relative that had a program that we needed to buy. Also, I've heard from school administrators that we just bought a curriculum and or we have to throw it out. And the answer to all that is no, we're not going to buy anything because that's local control. And no, you don't have to throw it out because the important thing is that their teachers are trained to do what needs to be done to make sure that kids can read and they can use whatever materials they have available.
And I think that's so important. And I loved how Read Redefined mentioned, like, it's easy to buy, like, have somebody go and say, yeah, I'll buy those crayons and this and that. But to get professional learning, because the biggest improvement we can make is to build the capacity of our teachers to make good instructional decisions. So I'll just give you this anecdote. I had a school that had all of their letters training completed, and they had 2 curriculum companies come to do the speak, like they want them to buy their product, right? So they were given, and all of that information. And when I was back in the dark ages, when I was looking at that, the people with the shiniest tote bag and the coolest bells and whistles, right? And the thing that looked most like what you'd had is kind of what you were drawn to. Well, I will tell you that after these 2 companies came, the teachers in that building said, we wouldn't choose either one of them. They don't align with what letters said. And they questioned them, like, why would you have this picture on this card? Because it doesn't really allow you to see that voiced or unvoiced. All of the things that they had learned in letters, they were throwing at these curriculum companies to say, why would we do this? So that makes us, by building that capacity, be better able to select the best materials to make sure that what's in front of our students is the very best quality of materials when they are in that opportunity to adopt a curriculum.
And hopefully it will drive publishers to get it right.
Absolutely. They said, actually the publisher company said to someone I knew in the room, like, we've never had questions like this. So I thought, good for Kansas teachers.
That's right. Dr. Curtis, would you share the story you shared with me when you went to Lewisburg the other morning?
Oh, yeah. So I went to Lewisburg, and I met with actually 80 middle secondary teachers in their system. And it's just how important structured literacy is for, and I heard Dr. Lane mention it too, look at middle secondary for everyone, because in Kansas we define that PK through 12, structured literacy. So I met with middle secondary teachers, and they started out as the back dwellers, kind of sitting in the back of the room. And I said, I'm a kindergarten teacher at heart, and kids were like pulling on my skirt, so like, move. And they, without me even really saying anything, they all moved up. But they were fully engaged in learning new information. And I know they wanted to be in their rooms getting ready, but they were fully engaged in it. And afterwards, we talked about what is helpful, what is not helpful, and how would structured literacy surround that. One thing we talk about is not having students read down the row and being humiliating for kids that are struggling to read, or popcorn reading, and we need to get rid of those practices. And so I was talking to them about best practices with our kids, especially those that struggle. And this gentleman came up to me, and he had been a teacher for a lot of years, and he said, you know what, that was me. And I always have done that. It's how I've taught, and I won't do it anymore. And so we go out, we claim structured literacy, we have to give them examples of what it looks like, and then be willing that no matter how long you've taught, you can teach an old dog new tricks.
And we just keep hearing, we heard about it at the summit you just talked about, at the conference, and just the engagement, what we're seeing, that teachers are hungry. That was the words you used with me. Like, they're hungry. They want the information. Because they want to do better. They're there for a purpose, and that's to teach kids. And so they're taking it in. And I think that's just exciting to keep hearing that over and over again. So we're all standing in the fire. And
it's exciting. You've put a lot of time and energy into making this a priority. So I thank you for that.
Absolutely. Thank you. Anybody?
Any other questions?
Comments, questions? Anybody wants to ask? Nope, we're all
the questions are answered in that manual.
That's right.
Just go enjoy.
I do appreciate, because I did have very limited knowledge of all of the things you talked about in the parts of letters. So thank you for that. That was very helpful. So we have better knowledge when we're talking to people.
I think for all of this, we will do this, we'll get this, and we have to make sure we have things in place to sustain it. And that's what our cadre will be doing.
Absolutely. Thanks. Well, thank you very much. Dr. Nugent, I almost missed you. But you weren't going to let that happen. Good for you.
No, I wasn't. I was ready.
That's right.
So I'm stepping in for Shane today. He was going to talk about this part just to kind of wrap up our topic of the seal of literacy and the other option that staff have to get the seal added to their license, one being the reading subtest. And so we just wanted to give you some data on number of completions of that subtest up to this point. You can see out of the 851 Kansas educators who have taken the test to get the seal of literacy, 725 have passed. That's a higher pass rate than the nation. And of those, 463 hold a Kansas license, which means that about 260, 262, I think if you do the math, would be those just coming out of their pre-service educators. I believe that in May, the state board approved the new 7001 test to be the official test. So we've been doing that transition year up to now. But the new 7001 test has the same 4 batteries: reading, math, science, and history. And so we'll be transitioning to that exclusively this August. Then I kind of wanted to get you up to speed. I loved Lori's slide about how many people are enrolled in letters and what areas that was, because I think we are on a very good trajectory. This is the total numbers so far who have had the seals of literacy added to their license. So when you look at early childhood, we're at about 28% who have already had that seal added. Elementary teachers, 27%, school specialists, 28%, administrators, 15%. And as you look at, we've got till 2028 to get that on the license. We're in a really good trajectory to get that finished. And then we know that after this year and soon, we have a lot of people in cohorts, and those numbers are going to look quite different next year when Shane gives this report. We did want to note that, I wrote this down somewhere, that letters did start requiring educator IDs to be put on when they enroll in letters, and there has been some work done on the part of the licensure team. So of the thousands of people enrolled in letters training, I think the Shane's team has had to physically look up over 1,100 to make sure that they match. And right now their priority is on getting Kansas licenses to licensed teachers. So if you get questions about why isn't my seal of literacy added, they will be diving into those matching probably after August, when their real task at hand is to get licenses in place. But seals of literacy for letters are added monthly based on the reports they pull directly off of the Lexia system. Any questions? I had the shortest one because that's what you get when you're new.
Maybe just speak. Jim talked about the funding. So can you just talk about, since the ESSER funds have done this for the board to understand, what's the current status as it relates to training, and then when is that officially over so that the board really knows that?
Yes. So all the funding for letters is back into place, and so we've reached out to service centers and all of those that are really leading the charge on letters training. We have, I couldn't tell you the number of cohorts starting right now. It's a lot. And so they'll have 2 years, of course, to complete that. And with our funding going into, any extra funding going into letters training, we can continue new cohorts starting, I would say, for a while to come. So we have the capacity to fund letters through our ESSER dollars for a while. Is that what you're asking, Commissioner? Yeah. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Okay, let's take a break before we finish out our day. Oh, yes, Commissioner.
We run off on a break. So this has been a long morning, right? But I think sometimes it's helpful to see what may feel like a long time. That's what Jim Porter would tell me, a long time, or a short time of the work that you've been doing, and then the partners that you've brought to the table and said there's many ways to go do this work. And by 2028, though, we do have an expectation. It's really high. We're not lowering the expectation, Danny. We're hold people accountable. Show us that you have the skills to teach us. And there's multiple ways in which to get there. And we do have the funding to help people get there. Right. So just so that you know that.
And in many ways, we have the funding through letters with the ESSER dollars. We have the funding through the blueprint that's providing ways for teachers without putting out extra dollars. The Fundamental Learning Center, Phillips, and Read Redefined are both on the at-risk list, so those dollars can be used to train their educators. So there's multiple ways that they can get that training that they need and not be out of pocket for the training needed. Michelle?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It'll be interesting to see just over time. Now, we won't have maybe the exact data on this, depending on the parents and if they want to give that information to the public. But it'd be interesting to see how fewer IEPs we will have with reading, IEPs for the more time people have to have for test taking. They need more time because they read slower or they comprehend. It'll be interesting just to see over time how much more confidence we have in kids and excelling and just doing better overall academically in school.
Well, and I think one of the big ways is through the behaviors, because we track those. I mean, we hear it over and over. When these kids get the confidence and they're reading, like, their behavior issues go way down. So I think there's multiple ways we can actually track that, actually, and a lot of different variables that come into all of that. So that's a good point.
Yeah, I feel like there'll be fewer kids at risk.
Yeah, absolutely.
The list will be hopefully reduced based off of what we're doing as far as reading, because that accounts for everything with story problems and everything.
Well, and history and science and the whole gamut. Like we said, it's the foundation for everything. So yes, I'm just so hopeful in the midst of it all. I think it's just a huge momentum we have going that we're just going to have to keep the fires burning for it all. I'm just going to point out, I just thought the title to this was interesting. I actually meant to point it out when Dr. Lane was here, but there's an article that I came across that it was called When Schools Need Balanced Literacy Rehab.
And that will be in the Friday notes.
Yeah, Randy will put the link in the Friday notes. I love the title, and it's really just an easy read, but it was just, there are things that have to be cleaned up. So while there are ways to work with the curriculum, we have to be careful that it's not in the balanced literacy fully, that there's not the 3 cueing, which I know we've already, looked at all of that, but making sure that that's solid, like it was said, just because the sticker's on the book that it's structured literacy doesn't mean it is. Those teachers were able to go after those publishers and say, no, you're saying it, but it's not showing. So, cleaning up what's been in classrooms for years, and yes, we're going to have to pitch it. It's not the right thing and it doesn't do the work. So this was just a really interesting article that I wanted to point out. Okay, let's take our 10-minute break and then we'll come finish our day. Okay, we are back at it. I will point out what's next on the agenda is actually a receive item. So board members, if you would make sure you pull from your packet thing that Deborah has filled, the NASB membership interest information, so that you are well aware, and we will actually vote on this next month, okay? So if you have any questions now or you want to hear from anybody, I have participated in a couple of Zooms. They were they're good information. I mean, don't get me wrong. I have missed a couple since then, so I've been trying to, just pop in here and there. I know Melanie is, well, several people. Jim's, the connections have been good, and I hear that. So it is interesting to hear what other states are doing. And I did, and I had spoken about that, about going through several states, going through their regulations and trying to clean things up. So it was interesting to hear other people were thinking the same way. Melanie?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I didn't prepare anything on this. I probably should have, because I could go on for a very long time. I would also urge the commissioner to maybe say a few words, because he obviously predates me and could speak to the history of NASB and this board. I know that Jim McNeese, who's no longer on the board, even served as the chair of NASB at one point. And so this board has a long history of kind of leaning on NASB for a lot of what is essentially professional development for us. I think especially when you come on as a new member, I was just having a conversation over the break about how long that whole conversation that we had this morning was, where we focused just on literacy, and it can be a lot to take in, right? Just as it's a lot to take in all of the new information that's flying at you, you've also got everything that wraps around policy and what it means. How can I be a good board member? That's what NASB is here for. And I can only imagine that that's why the state board initially decided to join the organization. I've had the opportunity, not yet, to go to they do an annual conference. They used to do an annual legislative conference. I believe they're now doing it every other year. And you've got a lot of this information in your packet. And then there are many subcommittees and small groups that meet. And so one of the advantages of getting involved with NASB is you get to know other people, and then the NASB staff will say, hey, Kathy, I noticed that you're interested in principals. There's a group for that. There's literally a group for principals. Not that you have to be a principal, but talking about principals and what it means to be a principal in a building. I've participated in, we've got an AI task force, not a task force, sorry, that's here. AI, just a group going on right now. So there are conversations around what are different states doing with regards to policing AI. Some states are just starting to figure it out. Some already have robust task forces going, and they're really taking the steps to do more. So I think it's just a tremendous resource that, frankly, we're probably underutilizing at this point. I know that we've kind of, in the COVID era, it was easy to pull back because they weren't doing as much. And so now we're kind of getting back in the swing of things. So I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone has, but I just so appreciate the many, many Zooms that there are where you can get on, meet lots of folks from other states. And it's really interesting to see the diversity of the people that come to these groups. They come from all different backgrounds. Every state is different. Some are elected, some are appointed, all kinds of stripes. So I strongly encourage you to jump in the next month, attend a NASB event, and then look forward to a good conversation next month about it.
That's a good idea. If you can jump into one and just get a little better feel. Beryl?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mm-hmm.
I was just going to share that I have attended all but one, I think, of the meetings, and it's good to hear from all over, even out of America, some of the Hawaii. Yeah. But to hear their perspectives, because what it has shown me is we're all dealing with the same kinds of issues. What's interesting, they break us out into groups, supposedly based on our region, but they keep putting me with the people in the Northeast. But it just kind of helps me get a perspective on what's going on with other people. So as a new member, that's all I wanted to share. It's been very helpful for me to participate.
Appreciate that. Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Commissioner.
So a couple things, and I think this is the first thing that you ought to know about NASB. There are two organizations that get sometimes mixed up in the public. One is called NASBA. No, and one's a not. Yes. And so one is for local boards, and then states like KASB could join that national. This is for State Board of Education. Does not represent local boards of education. And so just wanted you to know that. Over the years, to my knowledge, and you've been a member of NASB for as long as I know, you've had, in my time, 4 people that have been engaged at the national level. 2 chairs, presidents, Ken Willard and Jim McNeese. You had the treasurer, John Bacon, who I mentioned yesterday, and you had the secretary, which was Peggy Hill, whose predecessor to Deborah, served NASB. They had asked her to serve. So Melanie's right. COVID then, and around that time, as boards changed, the people that were very active went off, and maybe we didn't use it at all during the COVID period, or very little. And so, but kind of wanted to bring it back and tell you a little bit about it, your organization.
Dennis?
I went to the new members orientation a year ago in Washington, D.C., and I had some alternative travel I wanted to do, and I coupled it together, which is good. And I kind of went with this, okay, I'll wait and see what this organization's like. And it was just really well done. I mean, the conference was well done. I'm just impressed with their programming and the people that were there. There was a guy that flew in from Guam, 30-some hours in flying here. And just meeting a couple of the new members from Nebraska. We had, just good conversation off of the time blocks, and just it is kind of it really does kind of give you a bigger oversight as to what we experience here, and I think maybe some of the legislative issues that we deal with here locally, we can hear from other states of how they work with their legislators. I see that as just the advantage of hearing, like what Burl's saying, talk with people from other parts of the country, and it just does help.
Melanie?
I want to tag on to that new member bit, because when I was a new member, it was right in the thick of COVID. And so that year in 21, NASB did host their new member institute online, and I think that Betty was on as well. And I just really appreciated it. It was great to have it online because I could see all the slides, I could meet all the new people, to the best of my ability, despite the fact that we were stuck in the middle of COVID. Sometimes they do schedule things like the annual meeting on top of our board meetings. And so that's been the case these last 2 years, as we couldn't send anyone because it was literally on the exact same dates as our board meeting. And so one of the conversations that I've had with the executive director at NASB is, this is a bummer, guys. We'd really like to send people, but obviously we can't be there. And the same for the new member institute. I said, is there another way that we can engage people? I know we did the virtual thing. And so I think that there are opportunities for us to work with NASB too and say, these are the kinds of training that we're interested in. Because I know that from that new member institute, one of the things that they started with right out of the gate was Robert's rules and how meetings are run. And especially for brand new members, it's just a really great place to start and kind of set that foundation for how boards work and function. And then, they go on from there. So my 2 cents, but again, happy to answer anyone's questions or share the materials I have. Thanks.
Jim?
Early on, I was a lot more active than that. I started at the new member conference, and I was the only new member of the board at that time, and got to meet a lot of really neat people. But as a result of that, I was appointed to the Government Affairs Committee, and actually wound up a couple of years later as chair of the Government Affairs Committee. And we had monthly reports about updates on what was happening in the federal government that I could then report to this board, and it was very valuable to get that information. So, but that was before Zoom, so we had telephone calls. We had a telephone tree back then, but it was still, the telegraph, and I had learned Morse code, and
Was that a cell phone or was that a phone on the wall?
I went to the wall and stood there in the kitchen. No.
Since you said it was a long time ago.
At any rate, I found that to be very valuable, and it helped us become. I always, sent that information to my colleagues, and that was just a way we could keep up. Another way to keep up.
Right. Debbie?
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple things. One, I've been in National Association of Parliamentarians, a regular member, for about 8 years now. So that has been a huge, huge educational experience for me with running meetings and understanding how committees, boards should run and such. And it's a lot less expensive, and they do training every month for free, but I mean, lots of free training. But I wondered, it says the membership dues are $28,000, and is that, is that individual, or is it all the whole board in, the whole board out, or can I just waive mine and save $2,800? Because I attended a couple of times. I did not find NASB particularly enlightening for me, and I did not find it, and I was actually somewhat discouraged because, and I know you said that there's state board, but the Association of School Boards that is sent over to our local boards has encouraged them not to use Robert Rules of Order, and apparently this board has been encouraged not to as well. And so I'm just not really that interested in participating in this personally.
Yeah, it's not by member, it's by board, hence it's a board
That's a lot
membership.
of money.
So, okay.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Melanie.
Apologies. Can I chime in since the topic of the cost has been brought up?
Sure.
I just want to point out that one of the ways that we can utilize this membership, and part of where that money goes, is it does help pay for board member travel to some of these events. And so not just the annual meeting, but they have several different meetings that happen throughout the year. And if you are serving on one of those committees, they help with a stipend. And so part of this really facilitates getting us out of the state and going and doing these things so that you can meet with other board members from other states in person.
Right. Okay.
Madam Chair, please.
Yes.
If you will tolerate me, everyone had something to say, and so I was going to pass. But to Debbie's point, professional development is critical for board members. You cannot come on a board and think you know everything. It just doesn't work that way. So the learning, the development for board members, where do you go? This organization is situated to provide that. It is not only one topic. You mentioned Robert's Rules of Order, how committee members, how board members should behave. That's not the context of this organization. It gives you the opportunity to hear topics that board members have to deal with. Sometimes our focus is very narrow because we've never really had to deal with it. This is an educational institution. It helps you to develop your skills. It helps you to think outside of the box. There are issues that we have not faced in this state that some other state may have faced. So to just dismiss it because Robert's Rules of Order or you attended once and didn't find it, it's kind of shortchanging. You really need to get in there. And one of the things that's so great, if there is a topic that you are particularly interested in, that they may not offer. But if you let them know, I need more information on this, there are a team of people that are willing to delve in, provide you that information. Sometimes you get a legal insight on what's happening in other states. It is not just this narrow offering. And so I hope you will give them another chance just in looking in other areas. It is a necessary tool, and it is the only organizations such as this are the only ones that provide professional development for board members. And that's critical because not every board member that's elected has served on a board, has dealt with the problems that education, AI knew on the surface. There are so many areas that our skills can be elevated if we are willing to learn, and that's the place to learn. Just wanted to give a plug, and maybe they'll send me a stipend on that.
Everybody do their reading and research, and we'll come back to it next month. Committee reports, if you, Michelle, I'm looking at you. Michelle, did you want to give anything on the task force? I know you guys didn't meet the last time.
Yeah, and so I don't think there are conversations. The other task force members are privy to those. We're getting some back and forth between the parents and then Luann and a little bit between Lisa. So they're like getting, because what was happening too is the notes were going out like as far as like from the task force meeting like a week and a half later, like almost. So it's like it's like the recap and everything. They want that like within a couple days, just so that there can be some follow up to that. And then they were a little disappointed that the last meeting was canceled, but hopefully tomorrow night we can really, and that's why I won't have feedback. I'll have feedback for the next meeting when the negotiations meet. We'll have better feedback because that meeting is tomorrow night, and we'll be able to bring that to that meeting because I'm supposed to update those people at that meeting and a little bit on the task force and how it's going, or I have been anyway. So
great, thank you. Anybody else have a committee meeting? Melanie.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The policy committee met on Monday, the 11th, so many people were able to be here in Topeka for that, and I zoomed in. We plan to bring the board some draft policy updates we had 4 agenda items, but really they turn into 3, and so it's the specifics of the RFP process, which John Hess is hopefully going to help us on. I've made that request, and as well as so that's item 1. Item 2 is the grant and contract authority limit. And so, again, because that's kind of in his wheelhouse, hopefully get his inputs on both of those. And part of the goal is to, while we are crafting that policy, ensure that it looks a lot like state policy. So wherever it's already in writing, the goal is to mirror what the state is already doing. And then board travel, the third item is board travel and payroll policies, which includes clarifying our per diem rate and just what compensation looks like for the board. So we will have draft language for the board to review next month.
Oh, awesome.
And then our next meeting will be in October. And Dennis, go ahead.
Yeah, every other month.
We will be meeting every other month is the tentative plan. Yeah. But we'll keep the board updated on when our meeting dates are. And of course, those get published.
Right. Yes, Dennis.
A week ago yesterday, Mel and I were on a Zoom with ESEA and Advisory Council, and it was a 3-hour Zoom. There was a lot of things on there. The main thing that I was really kind of taken up with, the first agenda item was on safe schools, and the first hour we had a robust conversation about that. So that, it's good to talk to the people and get their input. So that was helpful for me to understand some things. An egg in the classroom, they always have a simulation the first Saturday of the state fair. I think it's the Kansas Land building, and I was there last year for a couple hours and plan to be there again. It's always a really good walkthrough for families with kids. They see things in that they, where food comes from. And then their introduction to new teachers was a little slower this past year, but I think they came close to 500 new teachers introduced to their program. And this is like an ancillary, something they can do inside the classroom to as a project. And so it gives teachers something to stir interest, especially in the elementary age groups. The other thing is they also have a Kansas, Teacher of the Year, Ag Teacher of the Year, that they choose a teacher, and that teacher will be profiled. I can't even give you a name because I didn't write it down, but there's going to be Kansas Farmer Magazine is going to profile that teacher this year, so that'll be a publication that will be able to. I'll try to bring you some information on that.
Do you know when they will publish it? Are you going to bring us a copy?
Yeah, that's my intent.
Okay.
And I'm talking to Deborah about October's Ag Month, so we'll see what develops, and
yeah, we'll see
maybe
what
we
we
can
can
get her
do.
here. I don't know.
Well, that would be cool, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that'd be
okay.
fun.
Melanie, anything to add to the ESEA meeting?
I would add that there was a robust conversation about school improvement, and they brought some case studies of the efforts that have been made around the state when a school is targeted, and you really dig in and say, what can we do to make this better? So that was an excellent conversation led by department staff. So I appreciated that. I think that was the biggie, was digging through what quality school improvement really looks like. And then just a little bit about how that connects at the federal level as well. Might actually be a good presentation to bring in front of the board at some point. I'll have a list of future agenda items, but I'll just throw that out that might be one that the board would be interested in.
And this is many states coming together in this?
No, this is a Kansas effort.
This is just Kansas. Okay. I was trying to fully wrap my head around what that was. Anybody else have a committee meeting in the past month to report out? I don't think I did. I don't know what I've been doing. It's been crazy. Busy summer. The conference, again, was just amazing. I really, really enjoyed. I and Melanie have complained several times to the commissioner that there was so much that we could not get to most of it. So, Danny had talked about the coach because he saw her, the one Dr. Curtis was talking about, Becca Silver. She was in a different thing he was in, and so I made sure, which Dr. Curtis had invited me in anyway, but to go see her in that literacy summit, so just to see her energy and everything. And I heard people around me saying, we should have her as a keynote next year. So, there was just a lot of energy. And I know the participation was up from previously, right?
Yes.
Conference was, I know from last year, it was definitely more people there and a lot of good engagement, so. Don't really think I have a chair report, so I think I'm good. Board travel requests, do we have any questions, changes, anything? Just make sure you're keeping Deborah informed so she can help track for you. Sure.
Madam Chair, I do have a question, because going through this, and I know this isn't even the most up-to-date one, this is May 31, but it kind of threw me that when we go into the negative on our budgets for our pay, I'm new to this, so I'm kind of wondering how that works. It seemed, I guess my idea is if we have a budget, if I get to the point where I'm going to break the budget, that Deborah should just stop paying me. That seems what should happen because I'm exceeding my budget. And it gets disproportionate amounts of representation to different districts. If I take, twice the money I'm supposed to, and Dr. New doesn't get any, or doesn't, use hers, and I took it from her. I don't know. It just seems that why do we have a budget if we don't keep it?
It's how do I say this? It's taken and it is weighted out by district. District 5, because of its geography, has always gotten to like a 1.5. The chair gets more because there's more going on. So those different things, but it's still kind of a big pool at the same time. So it's a constant looking at what is and isn't being used, especially as we get up toward, because it's an every 6 months we look at. So it goes from July 1 to, for the year June 30. So, but we kind of do it half at a time. So by the end of the year, so we're looking at it, and so she does. She keeps an eye on the whole pool. So if there's, and there are people who don't poll. It's not because they can't, it's because they just choose not to. So it's a wiggle room, if I could say,
but
because
it's
there's
negative
a
1,300 for July 1 through December 31st, 2024. We went in the whole 13.
Which one are you looking
1,300,
at?
13,000.
Oh, last year's,
Well,
okay.
that's the last 6 months that was on this. This is not the, you've got the more,
Well, it was in your packet.
That's, yeah. So
again, we keep track of it.
So
We're
for the end
definitely
of
watching.
2024, for the last half of 2024.
Yeah,
we
it
went
got very
13
tight.
We went almost 13,000 in the
Okay,
negative.
but our fiscal year is July 1 to June 30. So you're looking at the whole pool of funds at the same time. So it gets kind of measured out for the next 6 months.
Yeah, so the January 1 through June 30, we have a positive of 37, almost 3,800. So if you did them together, then we're net of the whole year, a negative $9,000.
Yeah, that's
in my-
not.
Yeah.
Yes.
That, from
So
that.
I know what happened because you're right, Debbie, there was an overspending in the first 6 months. So Deborah alerted the board that we had to make adjustments in the next 6 months because we couldn't at the end of the year be in a deficit. And we did that. We did not end the year with a deficit, correct,
No.
Deborah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
By June
So we
30.
adjusted because of just what you're saying.
Okay. So you're saying at the beginning of 2024, you had a net positive that took over
Yes.
and made up
Yes.
for that negative?
Because of the way the fiscal
13,000.
year actually runs. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So no, we are very cognizant and we do watch. And yes, if it came down to it, that is what would happen.
Deborah's a hawk on that.
Yeah,
She
she
watches
really
it
is.
every month, and she talks to me when anyone's going over, and we have conversations to try
But
to
yes,
adjust.
what would happen is it would be, there are no funds to pay you. So it is watched. And so thank you for looking at that. Appreciate it. So for the one before us right now for travel for, Jim?
I normally do not even list bond hearings because we do one or two and they take 20 or 30 minutes plus. On the 21st, I've got 11, so I'm going to ask for a salary for the 11th, for the 21st for the bond hearings. And they're remote, so it's only salary.
Gotcha.
So I want to speak to that because I think it goes to Debbie's comment just about the whole thing. So a change in law, I mean, what you're seeing is a change in law. So school districts now, if they're going to go to an election, have to go at certain times of the year where they could
the
schedule
bond.
the bond.
I'm sorry.
And so it's spread out over the year, and but now they're going to come in bunches.
Oh, gotcha.
And so it's going to require a different, as Jim said, he's going to require a half day or a full day, where before it was just an hour or two. So just what changed? Well, that's what changed.
Gotcha. So you go from 1 or 2 to 11.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Yes, Michelle.
Madam Chair, so Deborah walked around and made sure that it was updated. Do we need to just announce what we updated for her, or as long as she's good, we're good, or?
So you're saying with our vote, there's something that would be different on here?
I think there was only one thing. She just missed the negotiations meeting that was last Friday.
Okay, then we're good.
I mean, you do have, but I don't think the board didn't see that.
Those of you, thank you. For those of you who are on the KSDE
ongoing.
negotiations or the task force meetings at KSD, it's supposed to be KSD on both, sorry. I just put that as a general thing because it goes on for months. So
Right.
this is just to approve.
Okay.
This is not the actual mileage that's going in. You have in your policy, you have to approve each other's travel.
Yeah.
And so that's what this is. Some of it's from the past that nobody mentioned before, some of it's for the future.
I just want to make sure they were
Gotcha.
aware that. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Do we need a motion? I don't think we ever do. Okay. Can I get a motion to approve? Michelle? Second? Connie? All in favor? 10-0 vote. Thank you. And board future agenda item requests. Dennis?
Just there is a national report comes out as far as drug overdoses per county. And we had about 6 of them in Kansas that were high density. And I was just interested in that because it didn't seem to make a difference between rural or urban. And so all districts, all school districts are affected by that. And I just think we need to continue to look at safe schools and maybe have mental health people or something report. I think we've talked about this before, on what a safe school looks like. So
Sure, and we will
quarterly
be
type of thing.
definitely hearing from them. So maybe we can make sure and ask them to put that kind of information in the report. With
Yeah,
that,
right.
because
And-
they will be coming to speak to us. So
Yeah,
we
there's
can-
just, we've had talk in the past about, Narcan
Yes.
delivery in the schools and stuff like that. So, that's just,
Yeah.
front end protection.
Yeah.
The other thing is there's a lady, and I've talked to you about this and mentioned to Randy now, that the money that we put toward CTE programming for training of teachers and stuff is, there's some results now that have come back from the health sciences, how that has the training of teachers and then how they've gone out in districts. And so I'd like to request a 20-minute time block for SDAC out of Hutchinson to report to us next month.
Okay.
And it needs to be next month because of some timing, because of retirement.
So CTE teacher education, that's been happening.
Yeah, the results of our PAC grant that we in
I
health.
don't, if it's CTE, it wouldn't be PAC.
Well, it has to do with the training that they did for.
That was
I'm just
computer
kind
science.
of drawing a blank on how that money was spent, but there's a good testimony about that.
Okay. Okay.
How that money was spent.
We'll get the particulars from
I
you.
don't have
Okay.
details in front of me.
Michelle?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Scott Gordon brought up an interesting graphic yesterday, and I thought, that was interesting as far as the federal, where he put things in line. I think with people talking about parents' rights, we have to understand that the original Constitution has unalienable rights that preceded government and are under God. So I have the right to be free from the government deciding what religion I have, and because it's under God, so I can not have a religion or I can be of any religion. And when people want to go in and list rights, they need to understand that communist countries have Bill of Rights. They have the right to housing, right? What housing we decide for you, what food we decide for you, what you're going to be working, what you're going to be doing, what kind of education you're going to be getting. So we have to be careful that we want to keep that as simple as possible. When people want to go in and do parents' rights and list like 12 rights, that's dangerous because I have the right to direct the moral upbringing of my child. I have the right to privacy. It's in the original Constitution to protect one's personal thoughts. So if I have a thought, it shouldn't be changed based off of the personal thought I have. I should have the right to express that thought. And those are things that people need to understand. And I think we need to go back to when we're talking about AI, you have the right to your personal privacy. You have the right to protect yourself. Second Amendment, people always go to the guns. No, it's the right to protect yourself. So I want to go into that graphic and revisit that graphic now that people are going in and saying, well, I have a parent's rights. Well, you have the right to the upbringing of your child, and you have the right to direct their child's education and their moral and religious background, right? You're going into the school. You don't want that to affect everybody, but you need to go in and say, what can I do to pull my child out of whatever it is that they don't believe in? You have to be going in there and not affecting everyone else, saying, well, I don't want everybody else to see that book. Well, somebody might like that book, so you have to go in and say, my child's just not going to read that book. I think we need to be cognizant of not just listing certain rights that we have, because then the government can say, well, you no longer have those rights. Don't let the government dictate what rights you have. Keep them simplified.
So I guess I'm trying to understand what...
The top one, the federal, he said that we don't have the right to privacy. We absolutely have the right to privacy.
No, he said the federal courts defined what the Constitution was giving. He was talking about the definition the courts gave
But if we go
from
back
the
to
Constitution.
original Constitution, you absolutely have the right to privacy.
Okay,
And
but I'm trying to understand on a future
well, that's why I
agenda.
think we need to have a little refresher on that and bring somebody in that would be very, very, very good.
And that
at
would
different-
be literally based on the premise of the parental right situation when it comes
We
to
could do
public
it, yeah, we could
education.
focus on that because that's a big thing across the United States right now. And I think people need to be careful in listing specific rights because when you start doing that,
Yeah.
then they can take those rights away
Yeah,
from
I'm
you.
just trying to frame that within.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I can send something that,
okay,
and maybe we can get Scott's input on that as well. I think that'd be great.
Melanie.
Thank you, Madam
No,
Chair.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I totally jumped over Jim.
All good.
I'll
Jim.
be glad to defer.
Maybe
We've-
I'll check one off your list. No, really, go ahead. That's fine.
We've had several presentations on both regular presentations and on the forum about screen time and the use of devices. And it could be the conclusion, nobody said this, but it could be drawn to the conclusion that that's all people are doing some places. I think that if we're going to make, and this is not necessarily time sensitive, but if we're going to be making decisions or recommendations about how to use technology, there is a voice that has been missing from that. We need to have somebody, or we need to have the voice. Teachers need to tell us what they're doing. We need to know that information. And also, we also need to know how districts are securing data. And I would request that we have presentations from somebody that can give us information from the actual practitioner's position.
Yeah, and with what Commissioner Watson was speaking of yesterday, we're going to have Jake working on finding out from districts, what does that look like in your schools? And so we can get that, but we can add in the data component, security, because that is obviously a big deal as well. So thank you.
Now I guess Melanie.
Melanie.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I can tell from the list of speakers that you have that we're going to go over. So I'm just going to give you all of mine because there's no way you'll fit them into the next meeting. And so for your running list, I'd like to add an early one, which is the status. I'd like an update on the status of computer science education in the state because I know that that's going to be an issue in the upcoming legislative session. So obviously that's a January, February later thing, but I think that we should get in front of that. Okay, Dennis. And then with a nod to Scott Gordon from yesterday, I wrote down the district disorganization regs that we need to revisit. So I thought I'd just put that on this list. And then I wanted to talk about at some point in the near future, tied to that screen time conversation, can we talk about recess?
No, we should.
Can we talk about elementary and middle school and high school and how much time kids are getting away from screens in the great outdoors?
Well,
Or
not just
maybe
away
not
from
getting.
greens, but kind of like screens, but kind of like our 10 minutes, like, are they getting, like, you don't have to think for 10 minutes, like, just stop, you know, like, so, because we
Yeah.
feel like we're on all the time. Teachers too, right? Like,
Exactly.
it's an issue.
Some
So,
of them are in
okay.
basements of buildings with no windows.
Yeah.
We'll have that conversation then. And then my last one is I'd like to review the post-secondary assets list because I've been getting
Yes.
our requirement for graduation as a board because I've been getting some more emails about that and folks asking, can we get this added? Can we get that added? What happened to my request to add the Kansas Thespians? And so I think this might be a good time to.
We do need to start on that because it will affect this year's sophomores. So we have a little bit of space, but yes, we don't want it to get lost in the shuffle, so I
Yes.
agree. And
That
that's
is all.
under the grad requirements.
Thank you.
Debbie.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to back up. I'd like to hear also a presentation that Dennis requested, especially dealing with the Narcan, because I enjoyed that conference in Wichita, and the very last program that I attended was that safety one. And
Safe and secure schools?
yeah,
Okay.
it went the whole time. I just went in that very last bit.
Oh, gotcha.
And I did have the opportunity to ask a friend of mine who is a sheriff, because I got the feedback, a couple things, that Narcan is like so safe, like so safe. That two, I asked him, I said, if it's so safe, why is there pushback? Why are they having a hard time getting school boards to put this into their schools? And he said it's for some of them, they think that they're inviting in a drug culture because they have something to counter it, like they're in, that he said that's one attitude, and the other attitude is they just don't think they have that problem in their schools, usually because they're smaller schools, and they're just like, yeah, we don't have the drug issue that the big schools have. That kind of, he said those are kind of attitudes he expects are keeping this pushback. But I found the presentation very enlightening, and I really would like to, I'd like for us to hear from him, because I think it becomes a public service thing, because one of the things they point out, it's just a matter of time before a child gets inadvertently exposed to fentanyl, because it's on objects. And they get inadvertently exposed, and the school is ill-prepared to save them. And that is just needless.
And I wish I remembered which month it was when KBI Director Tony Mativi came, because that was an excellent presentation. I will really try to find that and send the link out, because that was excellent for our new board members to watch, because yes, it is exactly what you're saying. And he really helped us understand what's going on with all of that.
Where does it come from? And maybe Mr. Ferguson knows this better. Like you have to have your AEDs in the school, and you have to have some of these life-saving things in the school. You're required to have them. Is that coming from the Centers Disease Control?
Legislation.
That's legislation. So they need to basically. That seems weird to get into the details that much in legislation.
Somebody wanted a law.
But yeah, I mean, but honestly, somebody somewhere, I think, needs to say these are the basics for life-saving equipment that should be available to our students for their safety.
Okay, thank you. Yes, ma'am. January of 24. Deborah?
We'll send that link out to everyone.
Yeah. It was an amazing presentation, but definitely not something we just want to one-off and then never talk about again. So I appreciate that. I think the question would be is whether we can roll all of that into the mental health report or not, or how to handle it. But we will definitely talk about that and see what we can do. So thank you. Any business? Oops, what did I miss? Danny.
I just want to follow up with Melanie.
Sorry.
We are trying to get to recess.
But we have windows. But we have windows to stare at the wall of the building.
Sorry.
My gosh. Always got something. Okay, I think we're good to go. Yes, okay. It is 12:39 and we will adjourn until next month, September, I don't know, 8th, 9th, something like that.